Chapter 82. The Ottoman Empire is undoubtedly a large country. Their royal guards, the White Wolf Royal Guards, are undoubtedly Tier 3 elite light cavalry. The collective charge of the 3 silver-rank cavalry regiments is unstoppable. Alright, this isn't the underground world where they use gold rank as cannon fodder. At the very least, the small countries bordering them will definitely not be able to withstand it. Compared to the long-lived species, humans are definitely inferior in terms of individual combat power. However, humans are a race that relies on tools and external objects to win. The White Wolf Royal Guards can only reach silver rank when equipped with equipment and mounts. The so-called large country is superior in all aspects of agriculture, industry, alchemy, animal breeding, and talent training. Only then can it nurture more powerful troops and military power. For example, the armor of the White Wolf Guards is made of micellar mithril alloy. Not to mention the blueprint of the light cavalry armor. Even the alloy formula used as the raw material is a top secret of the Ottoman Empire. The micellar dragon spear, violent javelin, and violent sword that they are equipped with are all high-quality alchemy tools. As for their mounts, the Marlow Special Warhorse is an excellent warhorse that has been bred for many generations. It is said that this warhorse is a carnivorous animal. This luxurious equipment allows a bronze rank knight to skyrocket to the combat power of a silver rank human. Coupled with the absolute advantage in numbers and tactics, they are even more powerful. Not only the special forces, but all human troops are also extremely reliant on equipment. For example, a former farmer who has only received a year of militia training, if he is given a dragon spear, he will be a Tier 1 low-level spearman. If he goes through 2 years of shooting training, if he is given a magic crossbow, he will be a Tier 1 middle-level crossbow shooter. If he goes through more than 5 years of rigorous training, equipped with a full set of alchemy heavy armor and alchemy potions that increase his strength, he will be a Tier 2 low-level heavy armor fanatic warrior. If the griffins and raptors they're trained from young grow to the point that they can be ridden, then the Tier 3 troop, Griffin Knight, will be born. Of course, this is an expensive troop that only the nobles who can afford the food expenses of the griffins can take up. However, due to excessive reliance on external objects, it is inevitable that the White Wolf Guards are only bronze rank infantry when they dismount. At this time, cooperation and organization are needed. Humans are also extremely famous in the art of war. Using the cooperation of troops to make full use of their strengths and avoid their weaknesses is a must for every commander. The inheritance and innovation of technology and culture, the continuous development of new soldier types and new equipment, plus the fact that the human race's growth rate was definitely the fastest among all the races, they were never afraid of a war of attrition. This was the fundamental reason why humans, who did not have long lifespans and did not have any racial talents, were able to become the overlords of this world. For example, the elves were indeed strong. It was common for them to reach the silver tier at adulthood. However, it would take them 200 years to reach adulthood. That was enough for the humans to reproduce for 4 to 5 generations. The dark elves, the only unusual species among the elves, had strong reproductive abilities as well. However, their infighting was also the most intense. However, in a damned place like the underground, without cruel elimination, no matter how many resources they had, it would still be insufficient. Thus, in the eyes of other races, humans only have one advantage, being able to reproduce. However, this advantage is enough. Indeed, my fake gold rank might not be able to defeat the true gold rank of your elf race with the enhancement of their bloodline. However, it isn't a loss for me to exchange 10 of them for 1 of you. You can replace me after I die. As long as my equipment can keep up, I will be able to recover in less than 10 years. You elves, on the other hand, have to wait 200 years for a new generation to mature. Can you afford it? As long as the population is sufficient, exceptional geniuses will naturally appear. At the very least, based on what I know, there will be a few semi-god old fellows in every top-notch empire. However, the human kingdom isn't invulnerable. When the underground invades in the future, facing against the underground allied army in terms of absolute strength and battle techniques. The human kingdom also tasted the flaw of lacking top-notch fighting strength. And so, with the need to promote new progress, they once again ushered in a period of rapid development in machinery, alchemy, and magic. That strange Grade 5 troop, the Magic Machinery Dragon, was the crystallization of the new magic machinery and magic arrays. Alright, let's not talk about the headache-inducing future for now. Right now, I'm still having a headache. A tall tree attracts the wind. In history, the Ottoman Empire also used its actions to illustrate the meaning of this phrase. Regardless of whether it is the invading underground allied army or the undead calamity, they all unhesitatingly made it their primary target. Enjoying the shade under a large tree? No. According to international rules, under the summons of the main country, the subordinate countries have to step onto the battlefield. Furthermore, they are under the command of the main country, so it is certain that they will be used as cannon fodder. Thinking about the cruel war that is to come, the smaller the country, the thinner its foundation, the easier it is to be destroyed. Thus, I definitely won't allow the Donlan Principality to become a subordinate country of the Ottoman Empire. However, just like what I heard before, if I were to reject them directly, it might lead to a war. This dilemma is really difficult for me to make a decision. If it's difficult to choose, then don't choose. Just think of a way to turn it into a farce. As long as this alliance fails, the situation will change after a few years. Of course, if I don't take revenge, I won't be able to take this line down. Even though I said so, I still don't know how to go about it. To move 1,000 caddies with 4 ounces of strength, one must also have 4 ounces of strength. Compared to the colossal Aland Empire, I might not even have 1 ounce of strength in my hands. Even if I want to move 1,000 caddies with 4 ounces of strength, I still need to have 4 ounces of strength. Compared to the colossal Ottoman Empire, I might not even have 1 ounce of strength on my hands. As a newcomer, I am completely clueless. I don't have sufficient information and connections, so I am unable to come up with a reliable plan of action. This is also the reason why I am at the entrance of this filthy underground sewer. It stinks. Even if I want to do a mission to please that count, there is no need for me to accept this kind of mission. The former Queen of Banshees and current Queen of Slime pinches her nose and complains to me with a face full of disgust. Look, it is your kind. I point to the smelly underground sewer. There a quagmire slime is struggling. Its body is filled with disgusting filth. With just a glance, I am disgusted. Harloise, who is transformed into a black cat, pounces on me. I am the great Queen of Banshees. I am the omniscient of magic. I'm not a filthy slime. 1 claw, 2 bites, 3 tail flicks. It is a well-practiced feline technique. However, when the black cat uses it, it seems more like an act of cuteness than an attack. However, I don't ignore it like I did in the past, because the current Harloise biting attack does have some power. Frozen air, a silent and fatal cold air. It can be attached to one's physical body and weapons. It can also be used along with ice magic. Those who come into contact with it will have their movement slowed by 1% and will receive 1 point of ice damage per second. This ability can be stacked. If the movement speed is reduced by more than 20%, the target will suffer from various negative effects such as freezing, paralysis of thought, etc. If the movement speed is reduced by more than 50%, the target may die from hypothermia. From a certain standpoint, a mage's magic pet is their clone. Ghoul's Touch, Lich's Touch, and other spells that can only be released by a mage at close range can also be released through a magic pet. However, I didn't expect that the one who benefits the most from this passive ability, named Frozen Air, will be Harloise. In the form of a cat or bat, she is a small target. Her attack rate is high, and her sneak attacks are extremely stealthy. The other side of the low damage from her claws and fangs is that it is extremely difficult to attract the attention of the target. If she were to stack dozens of layers of frozen air on you, you might not be far from death. All right, but in front of me, who already knows this move, it is meaningless. With a light step, a twist, and a pinch, I pinch the cat's greatest weakness, the back of its neck. Then, with 2 twirls, I get a dead cat whose eyes are seeing stars after being spun around. You're still too inexperienced to fight against me. I smile gleefully. Due to the EXP penalty that is getting more and more ridiculous, I haven't leveled up recently. I'm also reluctant to spend my precious skill points on that darned ice magic. However, on the way here, I have been practicing Holy Light and the power of law, causing my combat strength to skyrocket. What grows even faster, surprisingly, is my swordsmanship and close combat skills. These should be the specialization of warriors. After all, they lack the support of supernatural powers. However, to me, learning swordsmanship is like letting my body relive the memories of the past. There's no need for me to deliberately learn it. This twist and pinch might seem simple, but in reality, it contains an exquisite footwork and a profound meaning of swordsmanship. Combining the two into one, it is clean and neat. It is really cool. If I were to see it in the outside world, it would definitely attract the praises of those who know their stuff and the screams of beauties. Why am I so cool? Roland, can you be any more ridiculous? Everyone else is fighting, but you are actually playing with a cat. Momo's sword moves like the wind as she chases after a group of rat men who have settled down in the underground tunnels. Looking at their red appearance, they must have attacked a passerby not too long ago. All right, although the fierce dog is not bad and can barely be considered a beauty, it is obvious that the dark elf's sense of beauty isn't trustworthy. Thus, I turn my gaze towards Kolos. Lord God Envoy, even if you are the executor of the will of our Lord, such a lazy action will bring shame to our Lord. Please fight seriously. The wild elf Kolos waves a huge rattan staff that is even taller than her. Lightning flashes again and again in the pitch-black underground tunnels. Every flash is followed by screams of agony. Due to the lack of firepower in our party and the obvious excess of law professions, she took out her old profession as a storm drool and acted as a damage dealer. Summoning lightning can be used underground. Although its power is obviously reduced, it has already subverted the common sense of a drool. It is enough to prove her astonishing attainments and talent in controlling lightning. Koro's Eintan, gender, Kolo's race, wild elf, job. LV60 drool / LV12 storm drool / LV20 judge / LV3 storm judge. Kolo's self-created legend job. Total level 95. Overall level 83. Soul imprint. Storm envoy. Overall evaluation. Legendary rank priest. System evaluation. A thigh worth relying on, and it is a beautiful thigh. As for that, Jenner Kolos, that joke is too old, so I won't comment on it. Right, the spring of a drowned man will be added to the lottery soon. Work hard on your lottery, and remember to please the beauty. Although my handwritten letter and Diana's testimony did make her believe that I am Wumian's god envoy. I don't know why, but she always gives me very strict requirements. You can't do this. You have to be strict with yourself. It is damaging to the image of my lord, as though I am throwing the face of her god. Throwing the face of Wumian's all day long. Do you think that I am reliable in the past? All right, tainting the true god that a priest believes in is equivalent to throwing away the white gloves of a duel to the death. I won't say these words to her face. All right, although she can't be considered a beauty, but looking at the angry stares from the others, I accidentally angered the crowd again. I better tuck my tail between my legs and work. Just where is that precious jade? There is something fishy about this quest. That count, who is quite a bit of authority, clearly has quite a few experts under him, but he entrusted us, outsiders, to search for his lost family heirloom. This guiding light is obviously necromancy. It is more like searching for souls and corpses. How can it find a treasure? Looks like I have already seen the truth of the matter. After biting my finger hard as revenge, Harloise jumps onto my shoulder. Sitting higher, she is able to distance herself from the disgusting smell of the filth. I also find it strange that Count gave us a guiding light filled with magic, saying that if we follow it, we will find the precious jade. However, from what I can sense, it is obviously necromancy magic, flesh and blood guidance. It is a necromancy magic that uses flesh and blood samples to track down the owner of the flesh and their lost limbs. It is one thing for a human count to have necromancers under him. But could it be that the precious jade we are looking for is a part of someone's body? All right, it's right in front. After everyone cleaned up the battlefield, I carried the guiding light and walked over. Finally, I stopped in front of a huge pot left behind by the rat man. Looking at how the guiding light is flashing more and more urgently, the precious jade we are looking for should be in this pot. Thus, I casually picked up a long ladle and scooped up a few handfuls. Looking at the human fingers and ears that I scooped up the first few times, this really is the ratman's mixed soup. But right after, I scooped up my target, the precious jade. So the precious jade is an egg. All right, the ferocious dog has already made a straightforward explanation. In front of us is a part of a male organ, commonly known as an egg. It has already been cooked, and its appearance. All right, I am already so disgusted that I can't even describe it. There's only one truth. That unlucky count must have been casually playing around outside, and then his first wife ruthlessly stabbed him and threw him into the sewers. Hee, how vicious. I'm starting to feel like meeting that countess. Inexplicably, listening to Harlow's malicious explanation and her malicious gaze, I felt a chill run down my spine. No, that isn't a knife wound, but a compression injury. Looking at the wound, there shouldn't be a perpetrator in this case. It should just be that when that fat count went to the toilet, he accidentally placed his asterisk in between the toilet seat and the toilet bowl, and then accidentally sat down. A crisp cracking sound rang out. It fell into the sewers. There's a real case on the internet. Look, that count is too fat, so it's hard for him to move. The edge of the metal toilet seat is also quite sharp, so the moment it is pressed down, it will split open with a podgy sound. Should I say that is expected of a professional judge? At the end of her explanation, Kolos even claps her hands together and makes a squeezing motion, producing a kacha, podgy sound. But why are you guys covering your lower body? Is there something wrong with my reasoning? No. Everyone just felt that they pulled their asterisk, and it hurts a little. All right, there was no doubt that the action of these men covering their nether regions was an instinct that men could empathize with. However, this result that left one speechless had already proved that today was destined to be a farce that would make one physically and mentally exhausted. Why can't I meet some normal people? It's fine if the team is unreliable, but even the client is unreliable? I ask the heavens speechlessly, but there is no answer. Should we bring this back? It's disgusting. Momo doesn't want to touch it. He probably wants a priest to help it regenerate. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spent money to hire us. But want to take it. Obviously, no one wants to touch this thing. Just as we were trying to push it away, a hong-long sound resounds, and the entire underground tunnel shakes. The main army of the Ratmen is here. They have always been a life form with a strong desire for vengeance. Grim takes a step forward silently, but there is a rare pride in his tone. The trap that he set up by himself has already worked. However, cold sweat breaks out on my head. Judging from the rocks that fall from the ceiling, this fellow seems to have used quite a bit of explosives. Grim, you can't be using the standards of the underground world to bury explosives, right? This is a man-made underground tunnel, so it isn't as sturdy as the walls of the underground world. Just how many did you bury? All right, there's no need to ask anymore. Grim's action of turning around and running shows what is going to happen next. Boom! Boom! A series of explosions and the collapse of the entire underground tunnel proves that not only did he bury explosives, he buried a lot of them. Damn it. Can't you guys be a little more normal? As I try my best to run for my life, I think about Kolos, who was calmly explaining my deductions. Thinking about this explosive maniac prince, I once again regret coming up with the name Absolute Gentleman Alliance. Kolos, whose gender is Kolos, Prince Grim, who mysteriously plays with explosives despite not being able to see his face, Bayfong. There's no need to add a prefix at all. The name Bayfong is the best description of a pervert. Cassio, who is getting closer and closer with Bayfong. Although he seems normal for the time being on good terms with Bayfong is probably the biggest problem in itself. A Shota-like fierce dog, a dark elf who pursues the path of holy light and the path of law, a certain two gays, two people. We aren't gays, we only love colos. There really isn't a single normal person here. I have decided if I don't die this time, I will find two normal teammates when I go out. You forgot to count yourself in, crazy old monster. Thanks for the reminder, you old hag pretending to be young. I told you not to call me that. I'll bite you, I'll really bite you. You've already bitten me, you bastard, you're not allowed to add freezing air to me. Apologize, definitely not. Then watch my move. You know how to add freezing air to slow me down, but I don't? Watch my move. When everyone escaped from the sewer, they were shocked to find that not far from the entrance of the sewer, a human and a cat were engaged in an intense brawl while moving forward at the speed of a tortoise. At the same time, they were dragging each other down, and the entire sewer was already shaking, as though it could collapse at any moment. Roland, stop teasing the cat at this time. I'm not teasing the cat. We're fighting. All right, before anyone had the time to be surprised that the little black cat could actually speak, the sewer finally collapsed. Even as the rocks fell, everyone could still hear the quarrel between the two. It's all because of you, you old hag. You won't have any milk to drink tomorrow. You'll have to be able to watch until tomorrow. To be able to drag you down with me. My life is worth it. Even if I fall into hell, I'll still wake up smiling. Boom. When countless rocks fell, everything in front of them was completely ruined. Everyone was shocked. What kind of person was this, actually willing to give up his life for a fight with a cat? Oh, I almost died. Don't worry. A scourge can live for 1,000 years. With your ability to cause trouble, even if it's the end of the world, you won't die. Watch my meow God's claw. All right, it was too early to say that. A human head popped out from the ruins. At this time, he who was stuck was still using his teeth to fight with his cat, fighting while mocking each other. However, it was obvious that he, who was now stuck, could not beat the cat. Seeing that his face was full of scratches, he actually began to surrender to the cat without hesitation. Tomorrow, 3 servings of milk. Milk bath. I want the highest grade. Meow wants a vat. Deal. All right. Looking at the man and cat, who quickly came to an agreement, let's not talk about the expressions on the others' faces when they dug out their team leader. They were also thinking about whether they should leave the party as soon as possible before this living treasure dragged them to death. But very quickly, they unexpectedly realized that team leader Roland was still holding that disgusting ladle in his hands. You can't be thinking of going to claim the reward, right? It was cooked once and then crushed once. It's all burnt. It's better to throw it away. Yeah, even a gold rank priest might not be able to save him if we send such a thing over. Be careful of that count's embarrassment turning into rage. I shook my head. I already understood why the count would entrust a foreign mercenary group to me. Diana and Kolos follow me to hand in the mission. This fellow's underlings even entrusted us with this mission. It's obvious that he intends to use us and then kill us to silence us. Just nice. When he turns hostile, we can take him down and use this toy to threaten him. Then, we can smoothly control the Count and take over the Count's personal connections. You can say whatever you want, but if you touch me with this ladle, I'll fight you to the death. Faced with Harlow's complaints, I didn't retort. At this moment, I was shocked by the system notification in front of me. Congratulations, host, for successfully activating the epic quest, Revival of the Mist. A few minutes ago, Kelly and Renee were shocked by a thick envelope that they had just opened. The blueprint for the full equipment set of the Aurora Knight, the blueprint for the Avalanche Defender set of the Royal Heavy Infantry Regiment, the training method for the Asmu Hound Tamers. Here and there were more than 30 types of powerful troops, job training methods, and equipment blueprints that had been lost in history. These were the pride of the Mist bloodline of the warlike country in the past. However, it was a pity that they were destroyed along with the capital city during the Battle of Definder. Could this be a legacy of the past? Was it preserved by a Donglan who escaped to the Ottoman Empire? No, these are all top secrets. The number of people who knew about it back then definitely didn't exceed a single digit. Also, look at the blueprint for this armor. We have this one, but this one is slightly different. Inconceivable. With this modification, Its defensive capabilities have increased by at least 20%. To think that it was an improved version. Who would be able to improve such a perfect design even further? The handwriting on the blueprint is still wet. It should have been written not too long ago. A small gift, please accept it. I will be paying you a visit soon. Roland. Who is Roland? No matter who he is, the Donlon Principality is saved. As long as we bring these back, give us another 10 years, and we will rise up once more, becoming the new powerful country in the north. Not mentioning the two overjoyed ladies at the same time, I was having a headache over this epic tier quest that had suddenly been activated. I really didn't expect that a moment of excitement would actually bring me such a huge problem. Ding! Congratulations, host, for successfully activating the epic quest, Revival of the Mist. Quest requirement. Resolve the crisis of the Donlon Principality being annexed and subjugated, allowing the country of Winterwolves to return once more. In front of the true king of Winterwolves, Dasos is nothing. Quest reward. The Roland Sacred Sword that has been upgraded to a god equipment. Clues to the god equipment, Holy Crown of Thorns. I know that you really want to find this god equipment that protects the country. Punishment for quest failure. Turn into a sissy. I'm serious, very serious. If I can't even protect the country this time, I might as well become a sissy. What a headache. Where did that brat Cavendish lose the Holy Crown of Thorns? He didn't even tell me, and even made me go look for it. Although I was complaining, it was likely that the smile on my face couldn't be hidden from anyone. This time, I definitely won't fail. Chapter 83. Name? Age? Occupation? What are you good at? What goals do you have? Aaron, 16, Iron Rank Warrior. My swordsmanship is pretty good. I want to earn money and become a hero that saves the world. Looking at the young man who is smiling foolishly in front of me, I nod my head. This simple black-faced young man reminds me of the Adam of the past. Next, a 16-year-old Iron Rank. What's the point of training? Can you advance to gold rank in 3 years? This isn't a nursery. You should find a newbie party to grind together. Kevin, 30+, silver rank shaman priest. My goal is to earn enough money to buy the Flame Dragon Circus. Dishu, 40+, I am his elder brother, a proud warrior. My goal is to be a good elder brother. I am the elder brother. Dia, you idiot who can't even count properly. We were born together. Why are you 10 years older than me? All right, this is a rare ogre shaman. It is said that he used to be the pillar of a circus. After the circus collapsed, he came out as a mercenary to make a living. He even intends to earn enough money to start a new circus. I am the elder brother. I'm the elder brother. Don't think that I am afraid of you, just because you know how to play some glowing tricks. I have strength. All right, let's play rock, paper, scissors. Whoever wins is the elder brother. All right, 1, 2, 3, ha rock. I am paper. I win. I'm the elder brother. Kevin, you are too slow. It doesn't count. Again, otherwise I will beat you up. Who's afraid of you? Today I will let you know the might of an elder brother. You idiot who can't even count to 9. But now, this rare, twin-headed ogre Kevin and Dishu are actually fighting over the elder brother. As they fight, they're even crying out in pain. I can't tell if it is the pain of hitting someone or the pain of being hit. I nod my head silently. This twin-headed ogre is indeed quite strong. He is a natural dual cultivator of magic and martial arts. His overall fighting prowess has definitely reached the level of a gold rank human, which is indeed rare. More importantly, the newbie just now is different. Next, however, what I lacked right now wasn't combat strength, but normal people. There were already enough perverts and weirdos in my team. If I added in someone who was born to fight left and right, wouldn't that be a joke? That day, after realizing that the gentleman group lacked morals and common sense, I decided to recruit 2 normal people after considering the need to raise their moral values. Of course, another reason is that in this human country, there are too many different races in the gentleman group. If we were to use non-humans to communicate with our clients, it would inevitably cause others to overthink it. Thus, in order to put on a facade, I intend to recruit a few human mercenaries. It will be even better if they are familiar with the local tyrants of this city. Even if they couldn't help, they could still act as a cover. Now that a group of aliens were moving together, it would be too eye-catching. A few aliens among a group of human mercenaries would be much better. There's no time to lose. I decided to act on it. Thus, early in the morning, I set up a stall at the entrance of the Mercenary Association to recruit people. With the friendly sponsorship of the Count with broken eggs, the salary offered is rather impressive. However, it is a pity that my identity as a foreigner and my untraceable background, coupled with the tense atmosphere of the enthronement ceremony, caused the veteran mercenaries to remain on the sidelines. Those who came to apply for the job are either completely useless newbies or those super weirdos that other groups wouldn't accept. Glancing at Kaven and Dishu who are still fighting left and right, I shake my head helplessly. Standing up, I pack up my stall and leave. Looks like I wasted an entire morning for nothing. However, when I pass by the bounty column, I stop. A-rank bounty mission. Find the culprit behind the destruction of the sewers in the northwest corner of the Pearl District. Regardless of life or death, the reward is 200,000 gold coins. This is a huge sum of money. An A-rank bounty is enough to raise my unranked mercenary group by a few levels. This 200,000 gold coins is enough to buy a luxurious mansion in the Pearl District where every inch of land is worth its weight in gold. Looks like any mysterious destruction before the enthronement ceremony will affect the nerves of the Ottoman officials. I hesitated for a moment. Considering that I have earned a huge sum recently, I don't lack money. Even though it would feel great to send that explosive maniac who is getting more and more dangerous out in exchange for the reward, it would still affect me in the end. Helpless, I regretfully let go of this opportunity to completely eliminate a troublesome person. Yesterday, when I was communicating with the Count with broken eggs, as expected, he was looking for unfamiliar faces to work for him, intending to silence us. When he saw that there were only 3 of us and 2 females, he decided to reveal his true intentions. Diana used a great sundering evil slash to cut down a dozen of them. Kolos destroyed the roof and the rest of the building. Then, I took out the devil's contract. That fat Count was quite knowledgeable. When he saw how the Holy Knight skillfully used the devil's language to change the evil contract, his jaw dropped in shock. It was as though he had seen an angel and a devil dancing together. What happened after that was even simpler. After signing the contract, looking at how he was scared stiff, I thought that it would be better for us to go all out. It wouldn't be good for either of us to perish together, so I didn't ask for too much. I just extorted a huge sum of money and a luxurious mansion to use as a temporary base. Then, I got him to act as my informant and provide him with intelligence. Of course, the devil's contract increases the price bit by bit, luring people to take the bait bit by bit. If I were to play too big at the start, wouldn't it scare away the fat sheep? My old mansion was also in the Pearl District. I was quite satisfied with it. It wasn't right to stay in a hotel all the time. Even though the mansion was a little old, the decorations and garden were of high quality. Currently, the members of the mercenary group were cleaning up the temporary base. As the leader of the humans, I took the opportunity to recruit people. If it was just me, it wouldn't be so eye-catching. Without those fellows who lacked moral integrity dragging me down, I should be able to recruit normal people. It definitely wasn't to avoid the responsibility of cleaning up. Finding an excuse to slack off or whatnot. Is this something that a righteous holy knight like me would do? Looks like without a reputation, I won't be able to recruit any decent people. Why don't I try the legendary compulsory course for all transmigrators and try to dig out those future heroes who aren't achieving their ambitions? If the plot time is up, they should have already been born. Sigh, when I got that guide, I thought that I would be able to recruit quite a number of super underlings. I didn't expect that their ancestors were still in the state of fertilized eggs. At that moment, I was really embarrassed. This should be even more depressing than the time when I finally managed to create glass, only to find out that it had already been created. I don't have any qualms about poaching the people of the Ottoman Empire. Imagining how cool it would be to walk out with a bunch of epic heroes following behind me, I couldn't help but let my imagination run wild. I remember that Swift Sword and Teacher of Magic Engineering are both in the Ottoman capital. Why don't I look for them tomorrow? Let's first look for that Count with broken eggs to get some intelligence. Now that the recruitment mission is done, where should I waste my time? Hey, this big brother. You still haven't told me that you aren't going to hire us. We want money to revive the Burning Fire Circus. We are very obedient. Just as I stared at the wanted poster in a daze, even starting to think about how long it would take for the cleaning to be completed and where should I go to waste my time, suddenly my vision darkened. Then, two ugly faces suddenly appeared in front of me, and a foul stench sprayed onto my face. Ghosts! All right. What was even faster than my exclamation was my physical instincts. Before I could react, my fist had already punched out. That touch, it felt as though I had hit something solid. He hit me. He actually really hit me. To actually dare to provoke this foolish ogre who doesn't differentiate between friend and foe. There's going to be a good show to watch. If he is killed, the compensation will be 3-1. If he is severely injured, the compensation will be 110. Pitiful fire dragon circus. They were already heavily in debt due to their poor management. Now, their former member has injured someone. This time, no one can save them. From the exclamations of the bystanders, just as I expected, Caven and Dishu's strength isn't too bad in my eyes. In the eyes of normal mercenaries, they are extremely frightening. However, no one dares to use them. The reason is because this ogre is easily provoked into a berserk state. Once they enter a battle, it is easy for them to not differentiate between friend and foe. I'm sorry, who told you to suddenly appear? It was an accident. I smile sheepishly and retract my hand from Caven and Dishu's stomach. However, there are already kind-hearted people who exclaim in shock. Brat, hurry up and run. How can an ogre be reasonable? Half a month ago, he's severely injured in Northern Berserker. Hurry up and run. You actually dare to hit Caven. The four eyes of the 3-meter-tall, twin-headed ogre start to turn bloodshot. Then, the whites of his eyes start to show and saliva drips from his mouth. The rest of his words can no longer be said. This is a complete berserk state. Everyone, charge together, otherwise we will all die here. All right, looking at the scene in front of us, there's already an old mercenary leading the charge with a furious roar. Complete berserk is the ultimate killing move, racial talent, of beastmen, berserkers, and ogres. They will give up all rationality and use their life force in exchange for the most fearsome power. Perhaps, if they don't receive treatment in time, they will basically die from exhaustion. However, before it ends, they are definitely a killing machine that doesn't fear death. Caven and Dishu's overall fighting strength is already at gold rank. After complete berserk, they would at least be at the legend rank. The old mercenary's judgment is correct. If they don't kill him in time, I'm afraid that no one here will survive. However, in the next second, the four eyes of the drooling ogre completely turn white. Then, his head suddenly tilts and he falls to the ground. His humongous body falls to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. How is this possible? It wasn't complete berserk, but he was knocked down? He was punched by that young man. The face of the strongest old mercenary is filled with shock. He couldn't believe it. He had partnered with Caven and Dishu before, so he knows how thick the skin and flesh of this shaman and berserker ogre is. He even saw the berserk ogre Caven and Dishu tear apart a war elephant. Yet, he was knocked down by a human with a single punch. After the dust settles, the young man who was smiling cheerfully has long disappeared. At the same time, I, who accidentally used my full strength in that punch, had already made use of the chaos to retreat. The basic strength of a normal ogre is 16 points, and Caven and Dishu, who are warriors, have at least 18 points. Compared to a human with 10 points, it is indeed terrifying, but compared to a human with 20 points, which exceeds the limits of mortals, there is a qualitative difference. Furthermore, I accidentally used the strength exertion technique that I recently practiced, which is the main reason why I was knocked down by that punch. As for why I wanted to escape, darn it, I just want to make a name for myself, but this kind of appearance is too unsightly. If I don't escape now, I won't be able to escape the title of Ogre Knight or something. I still have some understanding of the profession of mercenaries. For veterans, nicknames tend to spread even further than their real names. Furthermore, these nicknames are usually related to the first time they become famous, so it is hard to change it. If I have a good title like Giant Dragon Slayer or something like that, it would be good. However, if I were to have a title like Kobold Professional Killer, Goblin Destroyer, Wild Dog Banisher, and so on, I wouldn't be able to raise my head for the rest of my life. As for the strange nicknames like Holy Knight with greater magic power than an ogre and Ogre Holy Knight, based on my luck, it is definitely possible for me to obtain them. Thus, it is better for me to run as far as I can. Of course, before I leave, I completed my goal. The wanted poster in my bosom is just nice to pass the time before the big cleaning ends. B rank wanted poster. Bloodhand Brotherhood. Wanted for this bunch of darn pickpockets and killers, dead or alive. An ordinary member is 100 gold coins, at least 1,000 gold coins for a high-ranking member, and 50,000 gold coins for the bandit leader, Bloodhand Jim. If it is completed before the enthronement ceremony, the reward will be doubled. Although this bounty is much lesser than the A-rank bounty just now, I am in dire need of intelligence and a target to practice on. In terms of intelligence gathering, who can compare to the Thief Guild, who is also an intelligence peddler? Very quickly, I got some basic information about the Bloodhand Brotherhood from the Count with Broken Eggs. They are a lower middle-class thief guild with less than 200 members. They just made a big deal to steal the tributes of a certain country to His Majesty. Now, they are on the wanted list, and it is said that their nest is in the harbor area. 200 people, huh? Let's end it before dinner. If I bring the intelligence back, no one will say that I am slacking off. Roland Mist, Strength 20, Agility 19, Stamina 20, Intelligence 29, Will 19, Charm 19. Talent: War Angel Form, Sinful Demon God Form, Order Sword, Titan Body, LV-22 Order Knight, / LV-22 Chaos, which King, in fact, from a moment I was resurrected, I had been thinking about what kind of cultivation path I should take while I was pleasantly surprised by my high starting point. Putting aside ice magic and necromancy magic, as a veteran Holy Knight, I am confident in my close combat skills. However, with this balanced and powerful physical body, if I were to walk the path of a heavy armored two-handed swordsman, then my 19 points of agility would be wasted. If I were to walk the path of a light armored agility warrior, then it would be a waste of 20 points of strength that surpasses mortals. What surprised me the most is that the basic job, Order Knight, actually doesn't have a main attribute. Raising any attribute can raise one's overall fighting prowess. Thus, I hesitated. Could it be that I should walk the path of dual blades? Or should I learn from the barbarians and wield a heavy weapon in each hand? That doesn't mean that I have to start all over again. Changing my fighting style isn't an easy task. However, a small accident made me make up my mind. Frozen Air, this extremely sinister additional ability, can be attached to the blade, causing the opponent to unknowingly fall into a desperate situation during a fight. Initially, I thought that using the dazzling holy light on the sword to conceal the frozen air would be more discreet and lethal. However, reality always falls short of expectations. I tried many times, but regardless of whether it is holy light or the power of law, as long as they come into contact with the frozen air, one of them would definitely melt. If it isn't for their innate, conflicting natures, I wouldn't be able to fuse them together. Not using holy light to focus on the frozen air? Is a holy knight who doesn't use holy light still a holy knight? He is obviously a pure warrior, a novice second-rate warrior who is unable to focus on his swordsmanship. Of course, I turn my attention to the dual blades. One of them is infused with holy light, while the other is infused with frozen air. In theory, if I were to use two unique powers to attack, it would definitely make the opponent feel like crying. Furthermore, this way, not only would I be able to bring out the advantage of my extremely high basic attributes, this kind of battle strategy of using two attributes at the same time is also very suitable for me, who has many different attributes. I can choose the attribute of the two swords according to the opponent. However, when I suggested this plan, the knight, including Diana, didn't think that I was courting death. Dual wielding isn't as simple as using two swords at the same time. It is completely different from wielding a sword with both hands. The cycle between attack and defense is extremely important. When the left sword is used, even if the right sword isn't used to attack, it still has to move. Otherwise, the balance of the body will be broken. Multitasking is the norm. At the same time, it has a high requirement for balance and agility. It is basically the specialty of elf rangers. You are a human. This is what Diana wanted to say, but stopped herself. She was just short of saying, two-handed swordsman is the specialty of elf rangers. You won't be able to learn it. Dual-handed swords? Or two-handed swords? Haha, are you a 3-meter tall ogre or a 5-meter tall Highland barbarian? To think that you can come up with such a ridiculous idea. If you're able to do it, tonight I will. All right. Looking at the scene before her, Momo swallowed the rest of her words. Back then, I was wielding a two-handed sword in each of my hands. At the start, I was still very unfamiliar with it. However, as I swung it around, I got used to it, following which, it was as though I was a veteran who had been practicing for decades. I don't believe it. It must be a feint. Come, let's spar. All right. Momo personally stepped onto the stage. Amidst everyone's astonishment, after I got past the initial fluster, I found my own rhythm in the battle. I wielded the two heavy swords as nimbly as my own limbs. The coordination between the two swords brought about a brisk rhythm, playing a high-speed waltz that resembled the flowing water of a clear spring. Momo, who was lacking in strength to begin with, only lasted for less than 30 seconds before her hands went numb. This is a miracle. The gaze of the legend rank Holy Knight Diana, when she looks at me, is filled with disbelief. Then, she smiles and nods her head, as though this is how it should be. In reality, there is no doubt that I cheated. Dexterous hands. Allow your left hand to be as nimble as your right. Learning requirement. Agility 15 plus, system evaluation. There is really no difference between the left and right hand. Please do not use this skill for senseless things. Back when I was roaming around the kingdom of the elves, I trained my dexterous hands out of boredom, which resulted in this option appearing in the grayed out skill window. However, as this is a core job skill of a dual-wielding ranger, even though my basic stats are up to the mark, I still paid 3 times the skill points. Giant Soldier Wield. With your astonishing strength, you are able to wield a two-handed weapon like a one-handed sword. However, if you are not proficient in using one hand, your accuracy and damage will be greatly reduced. Learning requirement. Strength 18 plus, system evaluation. Although Giant Soldier Wield is a common talent for close combat, 18 points of strength is only enough to learn it. If you want to wield it well, you will need at least 20 points of strength. If you aren't a giant, only a legend rank warrior would be able to gather enough points. However, by then, your fighting style would have already been set. Why would you switch to dual-wielding weapons? Thus, this is also known as the most useless skill. Along with the investment of 4 skill points, countless battle techniques and experiences flowed into my mind and were memorized by my body. Only then did I manage to save a large amount of training time. Under the incredulous gazes of the crowd, I managed to grasp the basic techniques of wielding a two-handed sword. Of course, this was only the beginning. It only provided me with the possibility of trying out this fighting style. However, if I wanted to become a grandmaster in wielding a two-handed sword like I did in the past, I would still need to spend countless hours grinding and actual combat training. The opponent in front of me just happens to be a suitable sparring partner for me. The two-handed sword in my right glows with a golden light, illuminating the pitch-black basement. In the next instant, the thief hiding in the shadows is sent flying. It's a slap, not a chop. Two-handed heavy swords are a classic example of using strength to subdue others. If I can swing it with all my strength, I can split Mount Hua. Naturally, I can also use its weight and massive body to bully others by slapping, smashing, and chopping. However, looking at the opponent who was sent flying and fell into a wooden chest, there isn't any difference between a slap and a chop to a weak thief. It's a pity. Consider yourself unlucky. Shaking my head, I continue walking forward. The moment I step into the next room, an explosion sounds and smoke rises. The thieves and assassins in front and behind me kill their way out from the booby traps. All right, looking at the lush green dagger, if I were to go easy on them, it it would be equivalent to courting death. Thus, going all out, it becomes a one-sided battle. From the start of the battle, I finally understand why the silver rank Momo was defeated so easily. It is just that I changed to a fighting style that brings out the advantage of my basic stats to its fullest, causing my fighting prowess to increase exponentially. It is still the swift, accurate, and ruthless sword of the king. It doesn't take any side paths or play any tricks. Every strike is faster and heavier than the one before it, using strength to subdue others and speed to subdue others. But for agility-based assassins, it would be fatal. The attack range of a two-handed sword is huge to begin with. Furthermore, the basement is rather narrow. The moment two-handed swords start dancing, the space for dodging becomes even smaller. After the agility that the assassins are so proud of is suppressed, the one who makes the first move is basically me. At the same time, they have to withstand at least one round of my heavy sword in close combat. The heavy sword that I just barely managed to block the radiating holy light makes my feet wobble. The sword in my left hand is like a venomous snake. It doesn't strike, but as long as it strikes, it is aimed at the vitals, either slashing at the waist or stabbing at the throat. The strongest silver-rank shadow assassin was only able to block 3 strikes. Before the effects of the freezing air could even take effect, he was sliced into 2 by the sword in my right hand. In just a short 10 seconds, the thieves lost 7 to 8 of their comrades. When the strongest leader died meaninglessly in battle, the thieves finally confirmed that the opponent in front of them is an undefeatable one. Then, without any hesitation, they scattered in all directions. I didn't chase after them because the Queen of Banshees is already grumbling in my ears. If you don't hurry up, that fellow is going to run away. My clone is going to be taken away too. It isn't easy for me to split a clone right now. Don't waste it. She does have a reason to grumble. It is all thanks to her that we were able to find her all the way here. How do we find the hidden thief guild? I only disguised myself as a fat sheep and allowed the pickpockets of the Blood Hand Brotherhood to steal my wallet. There's a very valuable tier gem in it. Then, just like what the intelligence said, the Blood Hand Brotherhood has a tight control over their lower ranks. Very quickly, even though there is some strange mucus around the gem, the tier gem is transferred to the hands of the higher-ups of the Blood Hand Brotherhood. Then, following the guidance of the Clone of Greed, I followed it all the way here. Harlow's grumbling is still ringing in my ears. If I don't hurry up, I would have done this for nothing. If the head of the bandits runs away, the rewards and tributes would be gone. Naturally, the historical intelligence of the Thief Guild would be gone as well. Since I am already at the location, but I can't see the path, there must be a secret passage in this basement. Thus, I hasten my search. But very quickly, I realized that I didn't add any points in his search and mechanisms. Even though I can feel that the Clone of Greed is below, I can't find a mechanism no matter how hard I try. Forget it. Technology isn't my cup of tea after all. I'm still used to smashing the door with violence. Sort of order. Open a hole for me. I have long intended to find a chance to test out this talent skill. But before I could test out the damage it causes, a familiar voice rings in my ears. Ding! In your absence, you have become a hot topic among the mercenaries. Congratulations to host for obtaining your first honorary title after rebirth. It matches well with your style of smashing the door. Alright, I didn't lose my appetite. That title is very impressive. 1 punch to subdue a demon. Congratulations, it isn't the Ogre Knight that you have been worrying about. What? This title sounds like warrior monks? Knocking down an ogre with a single punch, and you still expect to become a holy knight? Dual swords? Everyone is treating you as a warrior monks disguised as a holy knight. Lord 1 punch to subdue a demon. Chapter 84. Bayfong Benevolent Beast King Hospital. We will provide you and your family with warm service at the lowest price and enjoy the services of royalty. It's decided then. Under the setting sun, I heard such an explosive topic the moment I walked into the renovated old mansion. I thought that I had walked into the wrong door. Let the world know of my existence. Let the future generations know of my existence. Even if I can't leave my name in the annals of history, I will still leave a stink for 10,000 years. Please trust us wholeheartedly. Please hand over your beloved pet to us. Specialized in infertility, a century-old shop, Beifong Benevolent Beast Hospital, worthy of your trust. That is the slogan of Four Flags, blinding a dog's eyes. Beifong is currently arguing with someone while his close brother, Cassio, is waving the flag and shouting for him. However, the slogan on the flag on his body is completely unbearable. I am thinking, if old Miniel were to see his grandson in such a state, should he be happy that he doesn't have to worry about internal strife in the tribe, or should he be so angry that he would go all out against me? Big Brother Beifong is so warm and amiable. Why do you all hate him? Could it be that racial prejudice is really so stubborn? Looking at the passionate roar, tears welling up in his eyes due to his big brother's incomprehension, I feel that old Miniel would probably hack me to death. If one isn't enough, he might even drag the entire tribe along with him. On the other side, heaven's punishment, Beifong. Gate die. All right, it is fine if other people wave this flag. However, you bastards who follow me here for Kolos, do you have the right to wave the flag at the back? The law is supreme. The law, court, and church is supreme. This flag is stuck on Kolos's gigantic staff. The rampaging lightning makes one unhesitatingly believe in her determination to uphold her beliefs. The minority obeys the majority. I said that it is the law court. If you don't like it, come and fight me. This is Momos. It is a perfect match for her ferocious appearance. All right, the flags of both sides are equally unbearable. The ones leading the other side are Kolos and Momo. There are also two small fries waving the flag and shouting with all their might. Very quickly, while I was secretly rejoicing that I managed to escape the cleaning, I understood what happened. As usual, it was the trouble I caused. Before I left, I said casually, "It's such a big house. It's such a waste. Our bedrooms are on the second and third floors. Why don't we do something on the first floor? With so many people coming and going, we can at least use it as a cover." All right. After the group of idlers finished cleaning, they really began to discuss how to use the space on the first floor in the garden. But as usual, the normal discussion only lasted for 5 minutes, and the rest became a fight to fulfill their selfish desires. Let's just set up a veterinary hospital. We have Big Brother Beifong, an old Chinese doctor, and so many beautiful nurses. We'll definitely make a fortune. Perhaps it was a collection from Beifong's time as a veterinarian. Cassio was currently showing off the nurse uniform in his hands. If that mini skirt and black lace top were to be worn by an elf, it would definitely be extremely alluring. Not to mention, judging from the gaze that was constantly shifting between Kolos and the nurse uniform, the two of them were truly shaken. Bastard, if people find out that I worked in Beifong's hospital, I really don't need to get married anymore. However, Momo was clearly unmoved. She was currently working hard for her future. Fierce woman, do you think that you can get married now? Do you think that no one knows about you peeping on Roland while he was sleeping? Female pervert. At least I'm stronger than you. How can it be normal for me to be together with Beifong every day? You want to be a nurse? Sure, as long as you wear it as well. You? How can you say that? We are just brothers. Do you think that I, gold-ranked Bao, am afraid of you? Fine, if I wear it, you have to agree with Big Brother Beifong's plan. I really don't know what you all are thinking. Why must you stop such a good thing like setting up a veterinary hospital? After saying his piece, Cassio really started to take off his armor to study how to wear the nurse uniform. The young lad was handsome and had a masculine aura to him. His firm muscles weren't exaggerated, but he gave off a classical sense of beauty as though he was a sculpture. However, if he were to wear the nurse uniform, I should go and vomit first. All right, if I don't stop him, I might be able to save my dinner today, but my corium dog eyes would be blinded. But fortunately, someone was a step ahead to stop him. Brother, it is good that you have such intentions, but don't reprimand them too much. History tells us that the pioneers are always alone, while the numb masses will eventually wake up one day. We just have to do our best to convey our true intentions and wait quietly. As for me, Beifong, who was pressing his palms together, smiled. His smile was as light as the clouds and wind, as though he was a Buddha. The halo of a saint could be faintly seen behind him. The world slandered me, bullied me, humiliated me, laughed at me, belittled me, despised me, hated me, lied to me. How can I deal with it? Just bear with it. Let it be. Avoid it. Bear with it. Respect it. Ignore it. After a few more years, look at it. What can I do about it? What can I do about all the hostility? I love this world so much. The final was a scream of agony. I want you to be deep. I want you to be deep. Do you think that we can't tell that the fake holy light is your hunter's flash grenade, and you still dare to copy the Eastern Buddhist scriptures? Heal your head. This is obviously your bad taste. You still dare to talk about love. Must love make one depressed? It is you, the warrior of love, who will beat it up. Broken shoe slash, sundering slash, condemnation strike, taste my demon subduing fist. All right, I couldn't help but make a move myself. Looking at the despicable smile on Beifeng's face, his sanctimonious face full of nonsense, I really can't vent my anger if I don't beat him up. After the farce, I swept my eyes across the hall that was just cleaned up, only to be messed up again by the banners and slogans. I began to preach. Look at how old you are. Can't you all be a little more steady? Look at Diana. Such a good girl. Why isn't she fighting for it? Big sis doesn't know which one to fight for. All right, from the hands behind Diana's back, whose face turned red from embarrassment, I saw two banners. I suggest that the first floor be built as a courtroom. The Church of the Goddess of Moonlight. Listen to the will of the true God. As though embarrassed for being stared at by me, the gray elf muttered something softly. When I got closer, I realized the Church of Holy Light is the highest. All right, this silly girl who was slow by half a beat finally made up her mind. As she said that, she looked at me expectantly, as though hoping that I, as a holy knight, would agree to her suggestion. I can understand that you have been following the path of holy light for a few hundred years. Now that you are under the command of the God of Law, you are still a gray elf who follows the path of redemption of the Goddess of Moonlight. However, is it really possible to worship three true gods at the same time? Even if the order gods only restrict the number of followers and don't prohibit multiple beliefs, as a clergyman, can't you have some integrity? Aren't you afraid of being struck to death by a bolt of lightning just because you have a foot in three boats? However, looking at how the valiant and heroic legend knight became so timid and worried when she talked about her beliefs, I knew that it was useless to say anything more. It doesn't matter what outsiders say about these matters, as long as she makes up her mind herself. I should have known that there wouldn't be any normal people in the Gentleman Alliance. Even if they look normal on the outside, there would still be problems on the inside. Even if they were normal in the beginning, they would still become a pervert after staying for a long time. I look at Cassio with sympathy. Probably the only one who isn't here, Grim, is slightly better. Wait, that's not right. We are still missing one. Where's Grim? There is obviously one person missing. So how can I be at ease? Grim is obviously the most dangerous one here. He disappeared from the moment we started chatting. Probably. Katja. Boom. Following the sounds of explosions and the destruction of the walls, thick smoke rises. I stare at the sky speechlessly and make up my mind to find a normal person tomorrow. Probably. You don't have to say any more, I understand. Next time, remember to put a chain on him and watch over him. Just tell him what I said. All right. I don't have to say anymore. I can already understand the train of thought of that weird prince. Cleaning the house equals preparation of the fortress equals activation of the security equipment equals setting up many traps and bombs equals safety first equals being able to sleep peacefully at night. Safety first. You don't have to thank me too much. The next moment, that prince pops out from a corner and raises a thumbs up proudly. Although I can't see his face under the helmet, I can feel that he is smiling gleefully under the helmet. I'll be back. I'll be back. For some reason, this ice-cold metal giant's thumbs-up gesture reminds me of the famous lines of the robot from another world. I'm a little curious about what Grim looks like under his metal mask. Could it be that he is really a metal magic puppet with an iron core and a steel body? That is why he is so dumb. So forget it. It isn't worth getting angry with him. It isn't the first time anyway. Some people are destined to be stubborn for their entire lives. The unrepentant Grim is a perfect example. There is no point in getting angry with him. Looking at the billowing black smoke outside the window, I think about how my blood pressure is getting higher and higher at such a young age. Even though I'm so angry that the veins on my face are bulging, I still clutch my chest and silently count to myself. I do my best to stabilize my emotions and blood pressure that are about to go berserk. Think on the bright side. So what if it exploded? If the old doesn't go, the new won't come. It is just the right time to set up a new defense system. Wait, what did he explode? We just moved here and we don't have any visitors. What kind of person could trigger the bomb that was just set up? BF*CK. The dinner, ingredients and daily necessities that I ordered. The precious magazines and magazines that I secretly bought. Grim, you idiot. My limited edition collection. Those are super expensive. Rushing out. As expected, it was the dinner and daily necessities that I had ordered at the Merchant Street after receiving the bounty reward. The carriage that delivered the goods had already flown into the sky, and the coachmen and porters were trembling in fear. But now, the expensive goods had all been turned into charred scrap. I can't take it anymore. Don't run. Let me kill all of you before finding new teammates. This time, I must find some normal people. All right, looking at the treasures that I went through so much trouble to get from the black market, only to be left with charred scraps, my last thread of rationality snaps. The new treasures were destroyed before I even had the chance to look at them. What is there to consider about my blood pressure? Eat my great sundering demon, father and mother of heavenly state. I finally know how you feel after a hard day's work, seeing that your home has been turned upside down by the rascals. You probably feel the same as me right now. I repent. I'm guilty, but can you not use this group of grown-up brats to torment me? Can you give me a few normal people? If this goes on, I'll die of high blood pressure before I'm even 20 years old. That was what a certain someone wrote in his diary tonight. But reality proved that weirdos will always summon weirdos. Perverts are contagious. Naming it Gentleman Alliance is the biggest mistake of my life. And this is just the beginning. It is an ancient palace complex. There is no paint on the walls, no carpet on the floor, and not even a decorative vase. Yet, it is the residence of the person with the highest authority in the Ottoman Empire. Luxury is for the sake of appearance. Appearance is for outsiders to see. Throw those messy things to the side. Don't dazzle my eyes. When the ministers persuaded Desos to follow the precedent of the previous emperors and build a huge palace when he ascends to the throne, the young emperor threw these words down and ignored everyone's dissuasion. He moved to the abandoned palace of the previous emperor. Women? I'm not interested. If it was someone else's woman, I might be interested. If it's someone else's land, I'm even more interested. The future king of Winter Wolves never hid his ambition. It is precisely this strong desire and ability to turn his ambition into reality that allowed him to defeat the other 7 sons of the previous emperor and finally ascend to the throne. War? Within 5 years of Desos ascending to the throne, there will definitely be war. This is the consensus of all diplomats and researchers of the international situation. If it was a small country, such an obvious war maniac wouldn't be able to sit firmly on his throne. However, it is a pity that in the past 300 years, the Åland Empire has accumulated sufficient resources and the neighboring countries aren't strong enough. From the commoners to the domain lords of the various lands, everyone hopes for a chance to reshuffle the cards and improve themselves. Darsos, who ascended to the throne under such circumstances, made the promise of war, thus raising his prestige to a frightening level. Renee and Kelly's guess isn't wrong. Desos is obviously using strength to convince people. If you're convinced, then kneel down. If you're not convinced, then he will find a reason to beat you until you are convinced. However, there is one thing that they didn't expect. Desos' ambition is far greater than expected. How can a subordinate country satisfy his greed? Have the arrangements been made? That Night Princess's Guardian Knight selection ceremony. Compared to the historical records, the Winter Wolf King could be considered a rare handsome man. He had a high-nosed bridge, a rather masculine square face, and long black hair that reached his waist. However, he didn't look like a sissy at all. Perhaps it was because of his sharp eyebrows that were as sharp as the stars, and his eagle-like eyes that always gave off an aggressive look which made it impossible for people to ignore his existence. At this moment, if the citizens of the Mist Country were to hear his words, they would definitely fight him to the death. It has been prepared. 2 legends, for gold-ranked and 16 silver-ranked. Our Ottoman Empire is filled with talented youths. This is giving her a lot of face. It should be considered as letting that country bumpkin princess off the hook. Don't underestimate the Mist bloodline. If it wasn't for the few battles that they caused, destroying so many powerful empires, how could our Ottoman Empire rise to power? A camel that dies of illness is still bigger than a horse. I am very interested in the secrets of their royal family. The legendary Aurora Knight is a rarely seen tier 4 gold-ranked soldier of the human race. Even if we were to leave a trace of it behind, it would be able to greatly increase the strength of our royal guards. Yes, from the very start, what the Ottoman Empire wants isn't to be a subordinate country. What they want is to swallow them up. Guardian Knight? In the HE continent, there is another term for the Guardian Knight of noble ladies, secret lover. Of course, this is usually the choice of the lady who is unable to marry due to certain reasons. But obviously, this time, Desos doesn't intend to seek Renee's opinion and go straight to the point. In this generation, there is only one female in the Mist royal family. If her husband is able to become an Ottoman, allowing the next prince to have half of the Ottoman bloodline, it would be equivalent to swallowing this small country. And if she were to reject being chosen as the Guardian Knight, fine, this is an insult to the supreme authority of the Ottoman Empire. It is a prelude to force you to rebel. Reject the alliance? Start a war and be swallowed up. Reject the Guardian Knight? Start a war and be swallowed up. Accept the alliance and the Guardian Knight? Be swallowed up directly. Facing the shameless Ottoman Empire, which clearly follows the law of the jungle, there isn't much that the Donglan Principality can do. In this simple palace, on the huge map hanging on the wall, the Donglan Principality and the 4 small countries around it are filled with all kinds of chess pieces. Those are the locations of great strategic importance. The Winter Wolf King, who has just ascended to the throne, has already set his sights on the small countries in the alliance. Among them, the fat meat that he is most satisfied with is the Donglan Principality in the north. As long as he can take it down, he will be invincible in the north, and his path to the borders of the Beastmen will be smooth. Occupying the Central Plains and expanding his territory, the Ottoman Empire will usher in a new peak. A stable back, the countless precious minerals in the Northern Highlands, and the huge profits from trading at the borders are the cornerstone of his strategy to dominate the entire continent. Just as the subordinate left, the young Winter Wolf King closes his eyes and goes into deep thought. However, his connection with a certain someone in the shadows has been established. Well done. As expected of Crow's son. Looks like choosing you to ascend to the throne is the best choice. Our cooperation will usher in a new peak. Dirty crows, I don't care why you are still so stubborn about that bloodline. As long as you are able to prove your worth, I won't be extravagant with my generous rewards as an emperor. Then, I shall thank your majesty first. As long as you are able to eradicate the Mist bloodline, we, the Celestial Tower, are willing to pledge our loyalty to you. Please look forward to our performance. Above the royal palace, in the midst of the storm, a pitch-black crow turns into the sky and disappears among the dark clouds. Hell, loyalty? Just a bunch of souls who should have died long ago. Leftovers killed by the Emperor of Eternal Night. How dare you talk about loyalty to me? However, you are indeed a good dog that bites. Isn't that so? Crow, the young Winter Wolf King says to his bed. Beneath it, there is a dungeon where a haggard old man is trapped. Unfilial son, kill me. I will never tell you the final secret of the Ottoman Empire. You will always be an incomplete emperor. However, based on the design of the dungeon, while the voice from above can travel down, the voice from the dungeon can't reach the surface. The shouts of the old man can only echo helplessly underground. Chapter 85. All right, since your sister isn't at home, I'll pay you a visit next time. Please accept this small gift. It's just to show my sincerity. Yesterday, I spent an entire night using my sword of Force Grim to dismantle all of his traps and explosives. Then, I spent an entire night suppressing them with brute force before they temporarily gave up on their goal. After being tricked by those scoundrels, I didn't sleep well for half a night. Before the sun even rose, I went out alone. Since these scoundrels are too unreliable, I should hurry up and find someone reliable. After sorting out the history of the Ottoman Empire, I found a few future experts who should be in the capital but haven't developed yet. This time, in order to recruit a few more normal people, I reluctantly crossed off a few names. The rest are all future heroes who are worthy of respect regardless of reputation, strength, or character. However, what surprised me was that when I visited 2 families in the morning, there was no one at all. When I found the 3rd family, Swift Sword Svina D. Nelson, I was told that she went out early in the morning. I found it a little strange. Why would a swordswoman like Svina go there so early in the morning? Little brother, can you tell me where your sister went? Once is a coincidence, but 3 times is still a coincidence. Now that I asked the 2 families, they didn't give me any details. Now that the other party is a child who is easy to coax, I naturally won't let him off. Sister said that I can't say. Sister went to participate in the Guardian Knight selection. It's a foreign princess. All right, as expected of a naughty child. The lollipops and toys that I prepared for Svina's most beloved little brother immediately made him throw his sister's orders to the back of his head. Guardian Knight? Princess? Svina is a female. Can she do it? I couldn't help but laugh out loud. However, thinking about the life of this female hero that was mentioned in the walkthrough, I can understand a little. Swift Sword Svina, a descendant of a great noble family in the Ottoman Empire, a female swordsman whose family has fallen from grace. She has been determined to revitalize her family ever since she was young. She once disguised herself as a male knight and joined the army to seek a promotion. However, because her identity was exposed, she was chased out of the Tsong Dragon Knight group that she was in charge of. It was obvious that this elder sister was fulfilling her historical goal in advance by pretending to be a man and participating in the selection for the Guardian Knight of a foreign princess. In comparison, as long as she could become the Guardian Knight of foreign princess, she could at least get rid of her identity as a commoner and take a big step towards the goal of revitalizing her family. Wait, the Guardian Knight selection? Foreign princess? Little Tiago, do you know which country that foreign princess is from? I think it's something like Lan. I thought it through in an instant. My emotions boiled in my chest, and I couldn't hear the rest of his words. Besos, you have guts. Anger? Helpless? Fear? Despair? Renee was unable to use words to express her emotions. The noisy Ottoman Royal Colosseum in front of her and the countless cheers of the audience made her sink into a cold despair. Congratulations, respected Highness Renee. Your famous beauty has surpassed the obstacles of the Aster Mountains. Look, the youngsters that came today are all not bad. You should be able to choose the most desirable Guardian Knight. Guardian Knight? My husband is chosen by you Ottoman people. Why should he? The roar of anger swirled in her throat for a while before she swallowed it down. This sudden attack on the Guardian Knight selection didn't give her any time to react. If she were to say, I didn't discuss this with you, or I will never acknowledge the Guardian Knight that you chose, the other party would immediately take the opportunity to escalate it into a diplomatic incident, becoming the fuse needed for war. Looking at the smiles on the faces of the envoys from other countries, looking at their gazes of pity, helplessness, and envy, Renee knew that there was no point in asking them for help. They had all the emotions present, except for the lack of surprise. Obviously, they had already received the news long ago, but as the person involved, she had only received the news 2 hours ago. She didn't know what the Ottoman Empire had sacrificed, but the allies that they had been talking about yesterday suddenly changed their minds and unhesitatingly used her as a sacrifice. Renee was furious, but she didn't know who to vent her anger on. She knew that in a diplomatic situation, hysterical questioning would only cause others to look down on her and her country. Tears were a symbol of weakness and immaturity. Is this the relationship between countries that teacher was talking about? The bloody law of the jungle? Arrogant Ottoman people. One day, you'll pay the price. The real king of winter wolves will tear your throats apart. All she could do was try her best to squeeze out a smile and remember the hateful faces in front of her in the bottom of her heart. The king of winter wolves, Dasos, looked at the little girl in front of him playfully. In a rich, noble family, a 14-year-old girl should still be at the age where she wouldn't wake up. The little girl in front of him gritted her teeth, lowered her head, and did her best to control herself. It was obvious that she had thought through everything in front of her. Facing such humiliation at such a young age, facing such a hopeless situation where he could possibly lose his lifelong happiness, it was already quite rare for him to be able to remain so calm. However, as his opponent, as a pebble that could stop his hegemony, he was still too inexperienced. The legendary might of being able to fight against 1,000 men was probably just a rumor. Cheers to the great alliance that is about to be established. Cheers to the young talents of our Ottoman Empire. Cheers to our amazingly charming Princess Renee. As the emperor took the lead to raise his cup, the golden cups filled with red wine were raised one by one. Many nobles smiled and raised their cups together. The only one who didn't fit in was the princess who was being blessed. She looked at them coldly, just like a wolf that was inspecting its prey from a high hill. Remembering the hatred and humiliation in front of her and looking for an opportunity to take revenge was the only thing she could do now. Everyone, I'm sorry. I'll go and touch up my makeup. But she was only a 14-year-old girl after all. Anger, despair, and grievance caused her eyes to inevitably turn red. Unwilling to shed tears in front of her enemies, she used the excuse of touching up her makeup to leave temporarily. And just as she walked down the platform, 2 burly guards followed her under Dasos' signal. Today, Renee was the main character. The Guardian Knight had to be decided on the spot. Dasos wouldn't allow any variables to happen. He couldn't let her run away. Soon, one of the guards waiting outside the toilet ran back to report. Only then did Dasos nod and turn his attention to the performance below. In Dasos' mind, he didn't mistreat any of the young princesses. The contestants below were all small nobles and elites among the commoners of the Ottoman Empire. He could also use this opportunity to pick out some talents. Of course, the children of the big nobles and the members of the royal family wouldn't participate in this kind of competition. While a princess from another country could bring honor and status, she was destined to be far away from the power center of the Ottoman Empire. The Guardian Knight selection followed the ancient tradition. It was a typical challenge tournament. The young knight would show off their knight's demeanor and outstanding martial arts skills to their beloved noble ladies. As long as they displayed enough strength, the loser would also be praised. And the 2 legends arranged by the officials, after confirming that there weren't any dark horses that could threaten their seeded contestants, they readily admitted defeat. After all, the 2 legend uncles weren't young anymore. It would be a little too much for them to bully a little girl. Now that it was the quarterfinals, those who were able to reach this stage were at least gold-ranked warriors, and the Rain Swallowsword Svina was one of them. The future emperor of the Ottoman Empire was raising his cup to admire the love of his people. Suddenly, looking at the storm-like swordsman, he frowned slightly. He called for his servant and whispered a few words into his ear. And just when the nobles of the Ottoman Empire were looking at the performance with satisfaction, no one could guess what this foreign princess who was already seen as a piece of meat on the chopping board was thinking. At this moment, in the dressing room of the VIP lounge, the girl was crying in front of the dressing mirror. She was sobbing silently. After all, she was only 14 years old. And a year ago, she was still a carefree princess. Now, the cruel international war was all pressing on her young shoulders. One wrong step and the country would be destroyed. When she thought of her family and citizens who trusted her in her hometown, when she thought of the humiliation she was about to face, she burst into tears. Father, Sister Kelly, I'm really an unqualified princess. Then do you need strength? Strength that is enough to change fate. The voice suddenly sounded out of nowhere. That gentle voice that went straight to the soul made Renee instinctively trust it, as though it was a revelation from her ancestors and the gods. Yes, as long as I can change everything, Even if I have to give up everything, including my soul, I am willing. Who are you? What did you do to me? All right, the suggestion spell has been broken, but I already got the answer. But I shook my head. Sigh, you must be the descendant of Cavendish. You are really stupid to reveal everything at the start of the deal. You didn't even see the other party's trump card, and you are willing to give up everything, including your soul. Any demon can cheat you of everything. You fail. You. Who are you? The soundproof barrier prevented the scream from coming out. Before the girl lost consciousness, the last thing she saw was a face that was exactly the same as her and a familiar voice. Sleep for a while. This burden is indeed a little heavy for you. I will help you carry some of it. However, you scored 0 in this pop quiz. Young man, remember to work hard and prepare for the makeup test. The selection for the Guardian Knight had already entered the finals. Both sides of the duel were outstanding young knight. The tall and burly Carter was the squadron leader of the Ottoman Empire's Azure Dragon Knight Squadron. At the age of 27, he relied on his outstanding martial arts and his myth-ranked weapon, Beastman Crusher, Heavy Hammer, to charge his way through to the finals. His opponent, the young nameless swordsman, was the type of swordsman that he hated the most. Initially, Carter was a little worried when he realized that this swordsman, who was as handsome as a woman, was obviously stronger than him. But at this moment, a piece of good news fell from the sky, and he was overjoyed. As expected, the moment the duel started, the swordsman became timid. You still intend to become a Guardian Knight? Do you have such a function? Yes. The news that he received was that his opponent for the duel was actually a woman. If the Guardian Knight was a woman, then the plans of the Ottoman Empire would naturally be a joke. Females couldn't leave behind offspring, so wouldn't it be equivalent to giving the other party a knight for free? Svina, who received the warning, could only grit her teeth and face the ridicule of her opponent. She had just received a secret letter from the royal servant. She thought it was a recruitment notice and was very happy. She didn't expect her identity to be exposed, and she was warned not to win the championship. She wanted to win and had the confidence to win. But to go against the will of the emperor in the Ottoman Empire? Was she tired of living? Thus, the result of the last duel was already determined before it even started. On the spectator's stand, the Princess Renee, who had finished dressing up, returned. It was still the same face and the same knight's battle dress. But this time, her temperament was slightly different. If Princess Rain's tearless look reminded others of a young bird, the current Princess Rain had a smile on her face as she walked over. Her footsteps were steady, and her confidence and pride reminded others of an eagle patrolling its prey. Sorry to keep everyone waiting? Not at all. Unknowingly, when the pair of smiling eyes looked at them, the leaders of the small countries who had just betrayed the alliance felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. In less than 5 minutes, she was like a completely different person. Even Desos was a little surprised. That swordsman is actually a woman. Why can a woman participate as well? The winner is Carter Tiace. But at this moment, the outcome of the battle had already been decided. The hesitant Svina was hit on the shoulder by a heavy hammer. Her hair was tightly bound and scattered. At the same time that her identity as a female was revealed, she naturally lost the chance to continue competing. The 2-meter-tall, burly Carter raised his heavy hammer and shouted loudly towards the spectator stand. He looked like a gorilla that had just received an award. There were already people criticizing the combination of the beast and the woman. But Princess Renee smiled. Since she is my guardian knight, then she should at least be stronger than me. Can I try personally? How can you dirty your highness's hands? Your highness is more suited to embroidery in a warm room. You should leave the rough work of leading troops to war to a man. Desos smiled, but his words were very impolite. He even mocked that the other party was only suitable to be a good wife and loving mother. Even if he had always felt that Renee's battle achievements were fake propaganda, how could he give his opponent the opportunity to turn the tables at this moment? One strike is enough. I just want to see if he is really as strong as he looks. If he is just a wax spearhead that looks like silver, then wouldn't I be at a disadvantage in the future? The young lady stuck out her tongue lightly, looking indescribably cute. But this dirty pun that was completely incompatible with her previous image caused an uproar in the crowd. But since Renee had already spoken to this extent, if he still didn't give in, it would seem like the Ottoman Empire was being stingy. Thus, Desos nodded his head. Then, the attendant understood and began to announce loudly. Now, our brave warrior, Knight Carter, will welcome a new challenge. The respected Princess Renee will personally test his strength. Phew! In order to prevent our powerful knight from injuring the lovely Princess Highness, Carter will receive 3 strikes from the princess in this test. If Knight Carter is able to block them, a new guardian knight will be born. All right, this attendant obviously understood the meaning of the king's words. He made it sound like Princess Renee couldn't put down her pride and insisted on going through the motions. The original 1 strike became 3 strikes. It seemed very open-minded, but while there was no difference in essence, it was actually a kind of arrogance and confidence. And the final guardian knight will be born was even more direct, not giving any way out. Carter, good job. Your Highness Renee, please have mercy. Ha ha ha. The arena was filled with mockery and noise. Everyone saw the 3 strikes test as a farce. Even Carter himself was smiling foolishly and nodding his head, as if the princess had agreed to marry him. But Renee laughed. It's a pity that I didn't bring a weapon. Your Majesty, can I borrow your sword? Of course, as long as you can use it. Desos handed over his sword with ill intentions. This blood-red legendary weapon was famous for its arrogance. He was waiting to see Renee make a fool of herself. Demon's Sword. Scarlet Conqueror was the sword of the Emperor of the Ottoman Empire. It was a legendary weapon, and it only submitted to the true conqueror. The weak wouldn't even have the chance to touch it. If they forced themselves to use it, they would only become a slave to the Demon's Sword. There were already a few unlucky fellows who had their blood sucked by the Demon's Sword. The Ottoman people who knew about this sword were waiting to see the little princess make a fool of herself. Thank you for your generosity, Your Majesty. Ah, what a naughty little fellow. But a good child is one who listens obediently. But what was unbelievable was that the expected shriek and release of her hand didn't happen. In that delicate hand, the red demon sword suddenly glowed brightly. The next moment, the glow was retracted and all the blood-red light gathered at the tip of the sword. It had entered into a battle state, and it was even more obedient than a pet dog that had met its owner. As the owner of the Demon's Sword, Desos couldn't believe it. He had never seen the Demon's Sword in such a respectful manner before. The Scarlet Conqueror only obeyed the ambitious conqueror. Could it be that in the eyes of the Demon's Sword, this little girl was a stronger conqueror than him? Sensing that the situation wasn't good, Desos wanted to stop her, but it was too late. Renee didn't walk up the stairs to the dueling ring. Instead, she slowly walked to the edge of the spectator stand and raised her head to look at the blue sky. How many years has it been? The Mist bloodline has been guarding the borders of the human world. The blood and lives of countless tribesmen have been exchanged in exchange for suspicion and enmity. One of Renee's feet had already stepped onto the guardrail. A commotion broke out in the surroundings. The servants, who were worried that she would commit suicide, had already rushed forward. However, a tangible holy light gushed out from her back, preventing them from getting close. How many times has it been? Before that bloody wound could heal, new despicable traitors would add a new wound to it. The Sacred Alliance is being torn apart like a piece of scrap paper. A moving voice reverberated in the spectator stand. Even though it was just an ordinary sentence, it seemed to possess a magical power, causing the traitors to suffer a purgatory-like interrogation of their conscience. Don't you all just want to know the secrets of the Mist royalty? All right, I will tell you then. The Mist royalty contains the power of God, God's grace, War Angel transformation. The holy light gushing out from her back turned into a pair of tangible wings. Renee had already leaped out of the spectator stand. Floating in mid-air, under the gaze of the crowd, she was enveloped by endless radiance, completing the transformation from a mortal to a war angel. Different from the new generation of angels who became god envoys in the recent times, this ancient war angel was personally created by the goddess of order. She was the vanguard of the crusade against the malevolent gods of chaos, the ruler of the entire angel tribe. The golden wings represented the endless power of order. The blazing holy flames represented judgment, and the golden holy runes that covered her entire body were inscribed with countless laws of the world. In the distant ancient times, the opponents of the war angel could only be the stronger malevolent gods and demon lords. The golden wings spread out and the ring of flames on her head blazed fiercely. The pure flames actually fused with the blood-red glow of the magic sword. With a flap of her wings, the angel Renee appeared in the sky above Carter. "My guardian knight? Laughable mortal, do you know your sins?" Aye. Facing the interrogation of the war angel, Carter wavered. Under the repeated propaganda of the various churches, the image of angels as the messengers of the gods of order had long been deeply ingrained in the hearts of the people. It was rare to see the messengers of the true gods in this world, and as a mortal, he actually attempted to gain the favor of an angel. "Isn't this a crime?" "All right, he doesn't need to use I anymore." Renee didn't even wait for his reply and swung the blood-red, flaming heavy sword down. Clang! What was unbelievable was that Carter actually used his heavy hammer to block the heavy sword. As the two weapons clashed, sparks flew in all directions. I actually blocked it. Why aren't you all cheering for me? I am the victor. With just 2 more strikes, I would be able to marry the princess. But immediately, he knew the reason. He did block the blade of the sword, but the holy flames on it had already spread along the point where the 2 weapons clashed, turning him into a blazing torch. He didn't even have the time to scream before he was turned into ashes. A guardian knight who had just been promoted was killed by the person he was loyal to. In an instant, the huge arena became silent, and the atmosphere turned cold. Overestimating yourself. A toad lusting after the swan's flesh. Maintaining the incarnation of the war angel consumed too much energy. In a short span of 10 seconds, it drained all of Renee's stamina and power of order. As she retracted her wings, Renee turned back into a mortal. Clap, clap, clap. What followed was Desos' applause and maniacal laughter. Ha ha. Indeed, overestimating himself. How can a mortal like him be worthy of becoming your guardian knight? Desos, who was walking closer, suddenly knelt down on one knee. Then, beautiful Princess Renee, the Emperor of the Ottoman Empire, Desos. Min, may I have the honor of becoming your guardian knight? What? Without a doubt, this was equivalent to a marriage proposal on the spot. Furthermore, it was the emperor who was said to be uninterested in women. In an instant, discussions and exclamations filled the air. However, I frowned. And it was me, not Renee. The real Renee had been thrown to Diana a long time ago. From the moment I returned from the toilet, I was the one who put on a show. Furthermore, the incarnation of the war angel was my race talent. Everything was still within my expectations, but Desos' confession was definitely unexpected. A confession from a man to another man is really disgusting. But at this moment, I couldn't help but consider it seriously. The marriage proposal of the emperor involved the dignity of the country. If it wasn't handled properly, a war might really break out. Since rejecting or accepting him directly wasn't an option, I would just have to do it my way. That's impossible. Why? As long as you agree, I am willing to use half of the kingdom as a betrothal gift. You can become the empress of the Ottoman Empire. If we work together, we can obtain everything in this world. Isn't that much better than starving and freezing at the borders? Desos, who was rejected, turned into an enraged lion as he questioned me furiously. Because it was impossible for us to be together from the very start. I swear in the name of the holy light that I have no interest in men. I only like women. All right, the commotion in the arena instantly cooled down. The emperor who had just proposed in front of everyone was tossed aside in such a pitiful manner. For a holy knight, a vow made in the name of the god who was the source of his power must be true. Otherwise, he would be fooling a true god, and his God-given power would be stripped away. Judging from the vibrant holy light around that princess, she really wasn't lying. She really did like women. As for me, I walked straight toward the last person on the stage, Svina, who lost after her identity as a woman was exposed. Thank you to the Ottoman Empire for organizing the Guardian Knight selection for me, allowing me to have the chance to obtain this adorable knight. On its her, I lowered my head and kissed the forehead of this girl who had been scared silly, completing the final ritual of the Guardian Knight. The knight and the princess fell in love at first sight. A beautiful story was born. Congratulations, congratulations. Thousands of years later, there would be such a record in history. Renee Cheen missed. Her other name was more widely known, Lily Princess. It was said that as a woman, she had a 3-digit Lily harem. Svina D. Nelson is the head knight and head concubine of the Lily Princess. The above is purely fictional. If there are any similarities, is purely a coincidence. Chapter 86. While a certain princess was performing arrogantly, the real princess was trembling in anger below the stage. When she woke up, she realized that she was stripped clean like a little lamb and was thrown on the stage with only a cloak wrapped around her. If not for the 2 gray elves on her left and right restraining her, if not for the fact that she was worried that things would get out of hand, she might have already started to cause a ruckus. The fake princess was able to suppress the entire audience even more than the real princess, causing her to feel dispirited. However, the angel incarnation that followed after shocked her to the point of disbelief. Humans are a very xenophobic race, but there is a bloodline that is not only not xenophobic, it is even revered repeatedly. Angel, the first generation of order, the messenger of God, the eldest son of God who participated in the creation of the human race, the race of God that has left the mortal world. On the murals of the church, in the sacred hymns, there are many praises for this race. Regardless of which epic or novel, angels are holy and pure. Their existence itself is the will of God, and wherever their sword points towards, it is the natural enemy of order. Perhaps it is impossible for the existing angels to appear in the mortal world. This is also the reason why the humans who worship the gods of order revere them so much. After all, to a true king, the further away they are from the high and mighty gods, the better. In that instant, Renee understood the actions of the fake princess and cheered in her heart. Could it be that she is really helping me? Just the bloodline ability of this angel incarnation is enough for the Mist royal family to not be looked down upon. Even if it is just a fox borrowing the tiger's might. With that information, as long as we are given enough time, we will have the hope to rise once again. When Rain saw the man slashing Carter with his sword, she waved her fists and cheered. Not to mention the fact that she was already disgusted by the gorilla. The accumulated resentment over the past few days had made her have no good impression of this country. But following that, Dasos's sudden proposal completely shocked her. The marriage of the emperor of 2 countries? Just thinking about it is inconceivable. Regardless of whether that man is doing it for the bloodline power or to completely swallow up the Donglan Principality, while he is displaying his ambition, he is also displaying his sincerity. Without a doubt, this is an extremely important diplomatic choice. In that instant, Rain really hesitated. If she were to sacrifice herself and accept this marriage proposal, perhaps her dukedom would have some time to catch its breath. However, she then thought of something else. When the difference between the 2 parties involved in the merger is too great, then it is just another way of saying that it is an annexation. If the current East Mist communal country were to merge with the Alland Empire, it could only be annexed as one of the provinces. Reject, I must reject. But directly rejecting will not only hurt Dasos's face, it will also bring shame to the Ottoman Empire. It might even bring up a war. What should I do? Obviously, this was an unexpected incident, but with the entire empire's pressure and bargaining chips, Dasos never expected that he would be rejected. However, the desperate situation in the eyes of the real Renee is a piece of cake in the eyes of the fake Renee. I'm sorry you're a man, but I like women. Dasos was full of confidence in his proposal, but in the end, he was rejected mercilessly. He wanted to use this opportunity to vent his anger, but he didn't know how to do so. In the end, he could only become a farce and a topic of conversation before dinner. The person he proposed to was someone who likes the same sex. This kind of rejection is probably the most helpless, but it is also the most sufficient reason to reject. How can a person of different sex date? While Renee was secretly glad that she and the Donlon Principality had just escaped a disaster, she immediately realized that she was in trouble. While she was saved, she seemed to have been tricked by the fake Renee. This pit is probably so deep that she will never be able to climb out of it in this lifetime. Wait, she actually used my face to make such a declaration in public. Then, won't I never be able to clear my name in the future? I won't be able to marry anyone in this lifetime? All right, tomorrow, the headlines of all the tabloids have already confirmed that the Emperor's proposal is rejected. Princess Renee reveals her sexuality. The secret history of the Emperor's love rival Svina, a love triangle that transcends borders and genders. Without a doubt, these will be the hottest topics recently. As for Renee herself, under the witness of the god of holy light, as a holy knight, there is no need to doubt the authenticity of her vow of true love. Soon, with the spread of information and gossip, Her Royal Highness Renee's special preference of loving beautiful women and not the country will spread throughout the world. Furthermore, this will definitely become a model for the fake to become real. If it is proven that she is normal in the future, this incident of deceiving the Ottoman Emperor in public will become an insult to the entire Ottoman Empire. The consequences will be unimaginable. Then, not only will Renee not be able to explain herself, she will also have to work hard to disguise herself as an abnormal woman. She might even have to have multiple wives and concubines. Bastard, I will kill you. How can I face others like this? All right then. If it wasn't for Diana holding her down, Renee, who is only wearing thin undergarments, would have unhesitatingly charged into the ring despite the risk of exposing herself. After this tragedy was turned into a farce, 2 hours later, when the tabloids and newspapers couldn't wait to spread the news about what happened in the royal family arena, the real and fake princess returned to the temporary embassy and sat together. Roland, you are Roland. You really didn't die. It has been a long time, big sister Kelly. Due to the spectacular performance of the princess, the previously unknown East miscommunal country suddenly became a hot topic. The temporary embassy that was initially deserted was immediately filled to the brim with visitors. However, it was a pity that the doors were tightly locked, with no intention of receiving visitors. However, in the guest room on the second floor, it was extremely noisy. Bastard, I will fight you to the death. You actually dare to frame me. In front of the furious young lady, I, who had reverted to Roland's appearance, leisurely sipped on iced bitter tea. This was a specialty of my hometown, and it had been a long time since I had encountered it. Naturally, I had to taste it more. Then, can you think of a better solution? Not only did you not embarrass the Ottoman Empire, you also rejected me. You should thank me, otherwise, you would be in deep trouble now. Renee wasn't an unreasonable person, and what I said was the truth. At that moment, Renee fell silent. She had been thinking about it, but not to mention a better solution. She couldn't even think of this solution. Who are you? Roland wouldn't call me that. After the initial joy, Callie's expression became a little hesitant when she heard how I addressed her. The world is big, but I am bigger. Roland would never call anyone big sister or big brother. In the diary, Kelly was one of the closest people to me in the past. As expected, I couldn't hide it. However, I didn't expect that I would be exposed the moment I opened my mouth. In that case, let's try the second form of address in the diary. Right, there was also a little secret regarding the Wood Elves. Yeah, little Kelly. The star-shaped birthmark on the back of your neck, the moles on your right breast and left buttocks are still there, right? Hearing this, Kelly immediately crossed her arms and glared at me with a red face, as if she was guarding against a pervert. Diana, who was traveling with me, also looked at me in astonishment. I have indeed forgotten many things. However, short-lived species are able to surpass the limits of their lifespan, so this kind of sacrifice is only natural. However, Kale Bryan shook her head. Even though her instincts told her that the person in front of her was indeed Roland, she still didn't dare to believe it. This was a matter of great importance, and no amount of caution would be excessive. If she had obtained something that Roland left behind, She might have found out about this as well, but she had a better method of inspection. A short sword with 2 dragons coiled around, it was placed in front of me. This was the lamp of life that was connected to my soul. The moment I got closer, the small white bead emitted a blinding light, proving that this was indeed my lamp of life. As expected, it's you, little pervert. Just how did you manage to extinguish it, then light it up, then extinguish it again? Before I could even react, Kelly hugged me. Her excited face made me wonder if she was still the calm wood elf from before. It's simple. Die and live again, then die again. Hearing this, Kelly was stunned. Die and live again, then die again? It was easy for her to say, but anyone who had a slight understanding of the world and souls would know that this was absolutely impossible. All right, it's rare for us to meet again, so let's not talk about these boring matters. Right? Is the black and white color of this lamp of life the indication that one's soul is inclined towards order and chaos? It seems that Cavendish really went all out this time. Indeed, there is nothing more inclined towards chaos than a demon who is the incarnation of chaos. However, what surprised me was that Kelly shook her head. 130 years ago, your soul bead was even darker than his. Can you tell me, were you him? The nightmare that represented the night. The wood elf's voice trembled as she asked. Even though the news that Lord Yongye was Roland had spread among the upper echelons of the various countries, as the first teacher of the Gemini stars, she was unwilling to believe that the kind and sunny Roland would end up in such a state. And it was me. Back then, I found out that the destruction of the Mist Country wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface, so I cleansed all of the suspects and accomplices. It seems that I went a little overboard. Sister Kelly, what'd you do? Why did Sister Kelly faint? All right, the nightmare that she was most worried about turned into reality. Without saying a word, all sorts of feelings welled up in Kelly's heart, and she fainted on the spot. However, after she fainted, she left the 3 of us behind, and we could only stare at each other. I, who had lost the relevant memories, could only know from the diary that Kelly loved the past me. However, I was unable to comprehend the excessive reaction. Under Renee's emergency treatment, Kelly had just woken up when she suddenly hugged me and started sobbing softly. Well, it's all because Sister Kelly is useless that you and Cavendish suffered so much. The person she valued had fallen into darkness. The Prince of Sunshine had become a demon king. The intense self-blame caused Kelly to sob uncontrollably. Her tears drenched my back. This familiar, yet unfamiliar feeling made me unable to move. This feeling of being loved and cared for as a junior, being cared for by an elder, was the first time that I had experienced it. I wasn't used to it, and it made me want to run away. Looks like I need to find something that can help me recover my memories. Even though the other party was crying a mess, I didn't feel anything at all. This was the first time that I felt that even the diary was unable to replace my memories. Some things, once lost, were difficult to retrieve. All right, after spending a great deal of effort, I finally managed to coax Kelly, who was constantly blaming herself and crying her eyes out, to change the topic back to the main topic. Will you come back? The trembling Kelly asked, but I shook my head. Why would I return? My subjects were still in Sulphur Mountain City. The current Donlon Principality was no longer the original Mist Country. Besides, it would be inappropriate for a ruler who had already abdicated to ascend to the throne once more. My goal was not to limit myself to just a single country. However, I will help the Mist Country rise once more. Those documents have already shown a portion of my sincerity. Now, the main event will begin with this sword. Roland's Sacred Sword, Semi-God Equipment Attack. 22 to 44 plus 11. Plus 11 is because it is considered a plus 11 semi-god equipment. Even if the sword is used to deal the lowest damage of the weapon, it will still inflict an additional 11 points of Silver Flame enchantment damage. Indestructible. Even against a god equipment, this sacred sword will not break. Mist Royalty. The Roland Sacred Sword is the symbol of the royalty of the Mist Royalty. Only those who have obtained the recognition of king can wield this sacred sword. Following the rise of the Mist Country, it is working hard to evolve and become stronger. But at the same time, only the most trusted knight of the Mist Country can wield this prideful sacred sword. Wind of the King. The wielder's strength +2, agility +2, stamina +2, charm +6. In a country established by the Mist bloodline, the wielder's reputation will be calculated from respect. There is a string of yellow words on the body of the sword. The Roland Sacred Sword is the sword of the legendary Saint Knight, Prince Roland. Only his descendants and successors will be able to obtain the recognition of this sacred sword. Usage requirement. Mist bloodline. The silver sacred sword gave off a dazzling radiance. Yet, I was secretly crying. I should have known that the system was up to no good. From the very start, it wasn't something that I could wield. Become a knight loyal to the Mist royalty? That would require a conferment ceremony and land. Putting aside the fact that the current Donlon Principality wasn't able to do that, even if it could, I wasn't willing to become a knight loyal to someone, even if the person I was loyal to might be my own descendant. And even if I could wield it in my hands, it would at most be a godly weapon. Even though such an item was rare, I could still find it. With the guidance of history, I felt that it shouldn't be too difficult to find it. However, if the current generation's crowned Prince Knight Princess were to find a Roland Sacred Sword, the symbol of the Mist royalty, then it would be fate. In this era where royal authority and divine authority were intertwined, the recovery of a lost object of royal authority would greatly increase the cohesiveness of the entire country. Those citizens who were lost due to war would also consider returning to their homeland. At the very least, the reputation of Renee, who found the Roland Sacred Sword, would skyrocket. With the royal authority and godly weapon as a bargaining chip, she could even attempt to merge with the other two small countries established by the citizens of the Mist Country. This way, with territory and people, there would be hope for the Mist Country to rise again. The Roland Sacred Sword. Is this the legendary Roland Sacred Sword? The cheering Renee had just touched the sacred sword when she was sent flying. However, judging from the fact that she wasn't burned by the sacred flames, she did indeed meet the requirements to wield it. It was just that she was still too weak, so weak that the sacred sword couldn't even acknowledge her. However, looking at this persevering princess, I was also thinking of ways to make her stronger. Why is Renee so weak? Is there no one to teach her? Renee's talent in swordsmanship is still all right, but it is only all right. With so many miscellaneous matters weighing down on her, how could she have the time to slowly practice her swordsmanship? She doesn't have any talent in divine arts, so the path of a holy knight and a priest has been severed. Even though she is smart, the path of a wizard requires a large amount of time, which she doesn't have. Thus, the most she can do is to practice her swordsmanship and train her body. Don't use you and Cavendish as a standard to compare. The Mist royal family has only produced the two of you in several thousand years. This is unfair to the other members of the royal family. I nodded my head. I pretty much knew what to do. I do have a new job here, a justice knight. Even though he is a knight of the god of law, he is the same as a holy knight. He doesn't need to be completely loyal to the church, and he doesn't need the willpower attribute that divine arts require. What he needs is intelligence and the understanding and analysis of law. Perhaps the Donlon Principality can come into contact with the Church of the God of Law. If it is able to make it the national religion, many things will be different, right? There's also the training of the Aurora Knight. We have to start now, or else it will be too late when winter comes. It didn't take long for us to get down to business. After all, it was just me talking and they listening. It wasn't something that could be done in a short period of time. However, there was a personal matter that I really wanted to ask about. Right, Kelly, whose descendant are Renee and the others. Is it mine or Cavendish's? An ugly daughter-in-law would have to meet her in-laws eventually. Filled with unease, it wasn't a good idea to keep this doubt in my heart. In the end, I still asked about it. You actually don't know? All right, it was natural for Kelly to be surprised. However, I could only shake my head helplessly and point at my own head, indicating that I couldn't remember it. Suddenly, Kelly revealed a heartbroken expression. Then, she lowered her head and complained angrily with tears in her eyes. It is enough for you to forget about me. You actually forgot about our child. Our child. Our child, our child, our child. These 5 words echoed in my mind and the room at the same time. Katja, Katja, Katja. Mine and Diana's cups fell to the ground. Our mouths were wide open, unable to close. Clang. It was Renee who dropped her sword on the ground. She stared blankly at the big sister who had raised her up. Could it be that her ancestors were actually her children? Should she call her grandma? You must be joking. I was at a complete loss. The scariest thing about losing one's memory was not knowing what one had forgotten. Could it be that I had unknowingly forgotten about my wife and child? I am joking. I haven't married anyone yet. Kelly stuck out her tongue and made a face. Even though she was 700 years old, she could only be considered a young woman among the long-lived Wood Elves. The Wood Elves were famous for being emotional and optimistic. Katja. This time, even the plate holding the cup fell to the ground. I clutched my chest and slumped on the chair. This shock wasn't good for my heart. I finally understood why the records regarding Kelly in the journal were so contradictory. Although she is as gentle as big sister and mother, she loves to joke too much. Sometimes, those can be fatal. Don't ever give her a chance, otherwise, you will regret it. Definitely. I even marked this part of the record with an asterisk. I almost believed it. Can you not joke about such things? All right, I admit that I completely believed it. Actually, I don't know either. During the war, I directly returned to the Melody Forest. When I met her again, the person from back then had already changed beyond recognition. However, she should be a descendant of you or Cavendish. However, since she is a descendant of the mist and a few hundred years have passed, the bloodline would naturally thin out. Is there any difference? There was a huge difference. This was related to whether or not I was an experienced mage with over 300 years of experience. All right, saying it like that was basically exposing my ugly side. It was also exposing that in these 300 years, I didn't make any progress in my love life. I wasn't that foolish. It should be Cavendish. After all, that child is more. I don't need to say the rest. I know that Cavendish is much more popular than me, but please don't pour salt on my wounds. But after that familiar body fragrance approached me again. Big sister Kelly hugged me again. If the beautiful memories are gone, it's fine to just make them again. Kelly, I love the cute little Roland the most. We just reunited, and I was hugged 3 times. At the same time, I also understood what the words "be careful" of being used as a pillow meant. Big sister Kelly, I'm not a child anymore. Although Kelly's excessive passion moved me slightly, I didn't know what to do. After all, out of all the beautiful women I had met in the past, half of them wanted to kill me, while the other half had hidden daggers behind their smiles. It was unprecedented for a beautiful woman to throw herself into my arms with such kindness. I didn't know how to deal with it. Suddenly, Kelly revealed an evil smile as she came closer to me. She stuck out the tip of her tongue and lightly licked my earlobe. Feeling the soft touch on my earlobe, I instantly felt my entire body tremble. I then felt dizzy and hurriedly backed away. What did you do? Even without looking in a mirror, I knew that my face was definitely red to the point of being unbearably red. This time, I was completely exposed. Your reaction is exactly the same as before. And you still say that you're not a child? It seems that little Roland's love life is still a blank after so many years. I've also seen the Saint's Time distortion ring before. We Wood Elves are the elves who are the most sensitive to natural life. It's our most basic racial talent to determine the age of an ancient tree through contact. Judging from your scent just now, your true age is far from what you appear to be. Do you need me to guess the true age of your physical body? I clasped my hands together in surrender. In the past, I was the only one who tricked others. Today, I finally met someone who could completely trick me. Was this the experience of an elder? However, it was so easy for me to trick the Queen of Banshees. Don't look down on me. I'll watch you grow up. Those tricks of yours are useless against me. It seemed that it wasn't just the difference in age and experience. More importantly, it was her understanding of me, while my understanding of her was only limited to information and books. Suddenly, as if she was dissatisfied with my guarded gaze, she hugged me again. Just as I looked at this woman who liked to tease me with my guard up, I heard a sobbing sound behind my ear. On my shoulder, Kelly started sobbing. You're too much, you stinky lawn. You actually forgot about me. To think that I've been thinking about you and worried about you. You actually only talked to me about work. You didn't even ask about me. Let me hug you just for a moment. Wah, you bastard lawn. Feeling the sobbing behind me, I couldn't move at all. My five senses were intertwined and all sorts of tastes were present, but I really didn't know what to do. I was now certain that this woman who was both a teacher and a mother was the bane of my existence. I would rather fight an evil dragon alone than guess what she would do next. In the end, I could only helplessly let her do as she pleased. I hugged her for at least 10 minutes. Little Roland has also reached the age to become an adult. If it's Roland, it's fine. Even though she finally let go of me, I still couldn't tell if she was telling the truth or not. But looking at the green-haired elf before me, whose eyes were swollen from crying, yet she was still smiling from the bottom of her heart, I felt that I had another reason to work hard. 10 minutes later, a huge fire suddenly engulfed the temporary embassy of the Donglan Principality. It seemed to be the work of a radical who was dissatisfied with the Night Princess's rejection of Dasos's marriage proposal. 20 minutes later, under the escort of a small squadron of Donglan Royal Knight, the princess and her royal teacher found a new residence, a 3-story villa. Welcome to the base of the Absolute Gentleman Alliance. We will provide the most reliable security and the most considerate room service. Chapter 87. This is the holy relic you mentioned. Before dawn, someone's great-great-great-granddaughter. It was like kicking someone off the bed. Are you rebelling? Why are you making a ruckus when the sun is not up yet? Last night, due to some reason, I didn't sleep for half the night. Now that I was woken up, I was immediately furious. This is the holy relic you gave me. See for yourself. Holy relic? It sounded very high class, but it was actually a special item infused with divine power. For example, a cup filled with divine blood, a wooden spear pierced through the heart of a certain god, or a shroud used by a certain god. If it was a holy relic of a certain god, it was usually an item used by that god before he ascended to godhood. If its believers came into contact with it, they could deepen their connection with the true God and rapidly increase their divine power. It was a rare treasure for every church. Naturally, I had a huge pile of the God of Law's holy relics with me. After the system appraised them, most of the usable ones were left behind in Sulphur Mountain City to be used as offerings, but there were a few that I brought along with me. Now that Renee had become a Justice Knight, I casually threw one of them to her, and she was actually complaining about it early in the morning. Isn't that great? Holy pillow, with a Pikachu pattern, very cute. Ah, you don't know this famous electric mouse? Let me tell you, this is a cartoon I designed. Look, its cheeks are red and its body is yellow. Isn't it very cute? Who cares about your electric mouse? Saliva, saliva. The back of your holy artifact is covered in your saliva. It's so disgusting when it touches my face in the middle of the night. Wumian's pillow, holy relic. As Wumian's has used it for a long time, this pillow has been tainted with his aura. Touching it while sleeping can deepen the connection between the user and the true God Wumian's, and increase the speed of the user's cultivation of the power of law. He took the pillow and flipped it over. There was indeed saliva on the back. After hesitating for a second, he turned it upside down and fell asleep. If you don't use it, I'll use it. Without this pillow, I can't sleep well for half a night. Yes, the reason why he couldn't sleep wasn't because a certain someone had been waiting for half a night for a sneak attack that didn't come, but because he had lost his usual pillow. Hey, wake up. It's time for morning training. What other holy relics do you have? That's because holy relics used by true gods are like cabbages. However, I do have a few here. You definitely don't want the holy red scarf, but do you want the holy toothbrush? No. Holy robe? Hey, don't be happy too early. I know you're thinking about it. It's not those Western regions armors. It's the abbreviation of the holy bathrobe. It's pink. Big Brother Roland, you're a legendary hero. I grew up listening to your heroic stories. Can't you be more reliable? Is it appropriate for a girl to walk around in a man's bathrobe? All right, I have a Saint artifact here, and it is guaranteed to be the best artifact among all Saint artifacts to connect with Wumian's. Furthermore, wearing it is neither unnecessary nor eye-catching, so is definitely useful. If it's that good, why didn't you take it out earlier? Over there? Take it yourself. Thus, I lifted the blanket and continued to sleep soundly. Where is it? Brother Roland, can you tell me? When she needed someone's help, she would be humble and submissive. Normally, she would be arrogant. This princess's temperament was really easy to control, but it was obvious that she needed to be disciplined. Isn't this it? Holy underwear, take it yourself. You can wear it inside, so it's neither unnecessary nor eye-catching. Furthermore, it will be in close contact with Womians, so it is guaranteed to be closely linked. You old pervert, you're sexually harassing me again. Eat my strike of condemnation. All right, it was just a day after her job change. Obviously, her strike of condemnation wasn't that proficient yet, so it was just an empty slogan. Thus, she was instantly tidied up and dragged away from morning training. A new day started with a certain disrespectful old ancestor disciplining his little granddaughter. You actually dare to sneak an attack on me. Today, it's 2 swords and 1 sword. If you don't complete it, you won't be able to eat dinner. Practice seriously. What are you calling me? Don't try to take advantage of your seniority. Big Sister Kelly told me that you're probably younger than me. The reason why I call you Big Brother Roland is because you have some reputation in the past. Otherwise, little brother Roland, do you want to eat a lollipop? This delinquent girl was obviously in need of discipline. You're asking for a beating. Practice your sword for me. If you can't finish before I finish practicing 30,000 swords, I will punish you with no dinner or supper tonight. Let's see if your Big Sister Kelly will plead for you. Don't. Big Sister Kelly may seem gentle, but when it comes to class, she turns into a ghost granny. She's super fierce and scary. Ghost Granny is behind you. Do you think I'll believe such a simple trick? If that fierce granny was here, I would have heard her footsteps long ago. She's been overweight recently. Who's pulling my ear? Cough. So I'm a ghost granny and fierce granny. I've troubled you to worry about my health. Looks like your highness etiquette and hygiene lessons need to be tutored. Please come to the 2nd floor after you've finished your sword training. Bastard Roland, you're scamming me again. So you're blaming me? I spread my hands innocently, but I smiled gleefully. I want a good sword. I'm serious. Even though I wanted to find a good weapon, I started to argue with that cat. The ambush a few days ago was an accident, but it was also within my expectations. I didn't need to find an opponent to test my skills on, but when I tasted the strength of this new battle style, I also noticed its weakness. That day in the arena, I was forced to face this weakness head-on. Magic Sword. Scarlet Conqueror attack power, 30 to 50 plus 9. Plus 9 is because it is considered a plus 9 legendary tier weapon. Even if you use the lowest damage of the weapon, you will still receive 9 additional lifesteal damage. Blood Conqueror. This magic sword has 5 forms. It will determine which form it can use based on the number of dead people in the user's hands. Every time the form is upgraded, a special skill will be added. The highest and lowest damage will be increased by 10 points. Currently at level 3. Blooddringer's Rage. After use, the user will absorb the blood of all living beings in the surroundings. While dealing a large amount of damage, it will also recover the user's stamina. Cold-blooded Fangs. Those who are struck will suffer from unstoppable bleeding damage. This damage can be stacked infinitely. Blood Defiler's Curse. With the Sword Master as the core, a domain of filth will be created. Everyone will suffer from the pain of their blood boiling. There's a string of blood-red words on the blade. This magic sword will always thirst for blood and slaughter, regardless of whether the blood is from your enemies or from yourself. Back then, when I received this magic sword from Desos, I was really hesitating on the possibility of escaping with the treasure, especially after I heard the temptation of the magic sword. Temporary Master, the amount of blood and souls you have harvested is more than 100 times that of the fool before me, Desos. Among the 10 sword masters, only the great you are able to use my final form, which will be 100 times stronger than my current form. However, as the price, you must provide me with the blood of 10,000 people within a year. Most of the magic swords are the creations of demons and devils. Using a magic sword usually requires a huge price to be paid, and it won't end well. However, equivalent exchange has always been the norm in this world. While paying a huge price, the power you obtain is also extremely terrifying. This Scarlet Conqueror is already comparable to the semi-god equipment Holy Sword Roland at level 3. If it were to be upgraded to its final form, it is unimaginable how powerful it would be. Perhaps even a god equipment wouldn't be able to compare to it. However, if a level 5 magic sword requires the blood of 10,000 people, a level 3 magic sword would probably require 100 people. If the user is unable to pay the price, they would have to use their own blood to make up for it. 100 people a year, one every 3 days. Perhaps Desos is busy with the blood sacrifice. Back then, I rejected it. If I were to really transform it to its final form, just the prerequisites for the transformation would be inexplicable, not to mention the huge price that I would have to pay. However, as a swordsman, how could I not be tempted by the powerful strength and special effects of the magic sword? I'm lacking in good weapons. As a master swordsman, to think that I can only wield 2 inferior black, iron, two-handed swords. This is really intolerable. After using the magic sword and holy sword, looking at Renee, who is barely able to wield the increasingly powerful Roland Holy Sword, while I am using 2 iron swords that add up to less than 10 gold coins, how can I not feel dejected? Meow. If you want a sword, go look for a blacksmith master. Why are you looking for Meow Meow? The Queen of Banshees, who is getting more and more adorable, licks her claws, making it hard for me to look straight at her. Stop acting dumb. You know why I'm looking for you. You're all 1,000-year-old foxes. Why are you playing games with me? Tell me, are there any god weapons nearby? Meow, there aren't any. I do have 2 fishbone blades, leftovers from last night. If you want them, I will give them to you. I knew that this would be the result, so I have already made preparations. All right, since there isn't any, then there is no other way. Meow, this isn't like you, to actually give up. I can't possibly make one out of thin air, right? Since there isn't any, I will forge it myself. Harloise is a little surprised. She only knows that the person in front of her is an expert in undead creations, but she has never heard that he knows smithing. Meow, you know how to forge weapons? Wait, Roland Mist, my dear disciple, what do you intend to do? But in the next moment, she understands. Roland is wearing that demon-like white coat, a mask, and a pair of glasses. His eyes are filled with fanatical sparks, and within the reagent bottles and medicine bottles in his hands, countless strange liquids are flowing. You should have heard of that legend, right? Metal slimes can transform into weapons like metal rods, and the Metal Slime King can transform into the legendary god weapon. Anyway, you're already a slime. Changing a little of your attributes and adding a little of your abilities isn't much, right? Right my ass. Don't pour those things in my body, not even the tweezers. Drill? Too big. Are you trying to kill me? All right, under the threat of her life, Harloise finally doesn't have the leisure to act cute anymore. I admit defeat. I'm telling you, there's a god weapon there. Take your drill away. Tisk, where are you cutting? Are you that regretful? Do you really want to stab me here and there, drill me here and there? You unfilial disciple. All right, in the face of Harloise's endless complaints, I raise the drill and test tube once more. She immediately becomes obedient. There's really a sword that you can use nearby. Do you know Pale Justice? The holy sword used by the legendary Holy Knight King. He is an Ottoman, and his descendants should be in this city. I don't need to explain the rest, right? Holy sword? I am overjoyed. This is an unexpected harvest. In the He continent, holy sword actually means pure, divine sword. But in reality, there are usually 2 types of holy swords. The first type is the sword that represents a certain region, country, race, or family, and Roland Holy Sword is undoubtedly the first type. The second type is the sword that is infused with a pure soul, and this is usually the exclusive right of the Holy Knight. In fact, this was a backdoor that the Order gods had opened for their servants. When a Holy Knight stepped into the path of death and was unwilling to give up on his crusade against chaos, he could infuse a portion of his strength and soul into a weapon for future generations to use. This holy sword/hammer is born. It usually restricts the user to be a holy knight, and it is very effective against chaos creatures. Why do I say that it is a backdoor left by the gods? Because other jobs have never succeeded in doing so, unless they transform into undead. The Order gods and river Styx won't let go of any soul of the dead. I am naturally satisfied to be able to obtain news of the holy sword. Thus, just as Harloise heaves a sigh of relief, I raise the drill again. What are you doing? Didn't I tell you about the holy sword? You're going back on your words. You liar who goes back on your words. Firstly, I didn't promise you anything from the start. Helping you evolve is my goal for today. Secondly, I am addicted to modification and I can't get rid of it. Lastly, and most importantly, I am a dual wielder. How can one sword be enough? The silly cat looks embarrassed, as though she is reflecting on how she fell for such a simple trick time and time again. Could it be that it is true that one's body affects one's intelligence? No, didn't I succeed every time I scammed you in the past? Intelligence is innate. You should have accepted your fate long ago. Don't even think about it. From anger to dejection, from dejection to excitement, I can't get tired of seeing Harloise's expression every time she is scammed. Perhaps this is the reason why I like to scam her. This is my territory. No one will save you even if you scream till your throat breaks. So just give in. No. Take that white, oily liquid away. Damn pervert. Why do you have tentacles? Could it be that the legendary pink book is really with you? Save me. Someone is abusing the cat. Chapter 88. Ouch. It's you darn cat again. Recently, Roland seemed to be in conflict with his cat. If he wasn't careful, the cat would suddenly pounce on him, pouncing and biting, attacking him with its claws and teeth. If he was wearing slippers, he would definitely be a ferocious beast that would ambush him from behind. There wasn't any killing intent when he attacked, and his attacks were swift and accurate, causing Roland to cry out in pain countless times. If it was any other time, a battle between a cat and a human would have started immediately. However, now wasn't the time to watch a farce. Lord Roland, if you can't take care of your cat, please go out and play with it. On the podium, the bespectacled Kolos glared at me angrily. Helpless, I could only grab her neck and spin her 4 to 5 times before throwing her out of the window in a daze. This is too much. How can you torture an animal like that? The cat will fall to her death. Cassio, who was becoming more and more animal lover, was filled with indignation. However, I shook my head. Good people don't live long, while calamities live for 1,000 years. If she would die so easily, she would have died again and again in 1,000 years. As expected, Heloise's curses and complaints came through our telepathic connection. Darned unfilial disciple, how dare you treat the great queen of banshees like this? Just you wait, I will scratch flowers on your pillow and, after hesitating for a few minutes, the darned cat finally released the most vicious and shameless curse in her entire life. I will pee on your pillow and bed sheets. I mean what I say. I am a cat now, so don't expect me to not do it. I'm going all out. Since I dare to say it, I will definitely do it. Then I will pack up the pillow and bed sheets and mail them to my old acquaintances in the Shilor Empire. I will also mark your current appearance and name on them. The wet part is the secretion of the all-knowing one. Do you think you should mail them to your fanatical admirers to collect, or give them to your enemies to hold an exhibition and celebration party? I was wrong. I won't go. I will go practice my weapon transformation now. This was what I liked the most about Heloise. When she realized that she couldn't win, she would immediately admit defeat instead of stubbornly persisting. Perhaps this was the main reason why this calamity was able to live for a few thousand years. You are still too inexperienced to fight against me. Student Luo Lan, since you like to stand so much, I'll let you stand as long as you want. Go outside and stand as punishment. But the next moment, I knew that I had fallen for a trap. I was currently in the middle of class, and I was communicating mentally through the magic pet contract. Outsiders would think that I was just standing there in a daze, which made me seem a little crazy. Coincidentally, the temporary mentor, Kolos, was glaring at me furiously. My daze had obviously become a challenge to her authority as a mentor. Thus, I had no choice but to obediently stand outside. That's right, they were currently in class, and the content of the class was still the teachings of the God of Law and the law itself. The teacher was naturally Kolos, the highest-ranked law class here. After that intense battle, in the end, half of the first floor was turned into a law court, also a small church of the God of Law. In consideration of me and Diana, a small compartment was left as a holy light chapel. As for the veterinary hospital that a certain someone strongly requested, the stall outside the wall should be it. In any case, I wouldn't admit that I knew him. Not only that, I even secretly reported a certain veterinarian to the related departments for operating without a license. It was a pity that the town security of this city couldn't be compared to Sulphur Mountain City, so it would be difficult to deal with him. All right, back to the main topic. To have Kolos explain the teachings of the God of Law was her own wish, but it was also the strong wish of the listeners. Needless to say, Renee and Kelly were still hesitating on whether they should introduce the faith of the God of Law as the national religion, so naturally, they needed to deepen their understanding of it. Even Diana and Momo, the two gray elves, strongly requested to start class. The most surprising thing was that not only was Cassio interested in this faith of a true God that was growing rapidly in the underground world, even the person whose name I didn't want to be uttered was also interested in the faith of the God of Law. I still have to return to Sulphur Mountain City. I also believe that this new faith will spread to every corner of the world. However, I am a man who is fated to walk on the edge of the law. So, to challenge something, one must first understand what that thing is and study if there are any loopholes in it. A certain Draken has been acting more and more like a philosopher recently. His words made me think that a new scholar of law might be born for such a ridiculous reason. However, we don't have a reason to reject him from learning the teachings and laws. Furthermore, looking at the past 2 days, he seemed to be the most diligent student in the class. At the same time, Renee and the bunch of Royal Knight who came along with her were also listening to the class. Some of them were already considering if they should change their job to a Justice Knight. This is already the second day of the class, and today there are 2 new listeners, Savannah D. Nelson and Raymond Ron Nelson. As this elder sister accidentally became the Emperor's love rival, her landlord chased the siblings out of the house without any hesitation. Very quickly, after bumping into walls everywhere, Savannah realized that even though the Ottoman Empire is huge, there isn't a place for them to stay. In this feudal human society, where the core relationship between the feudal lord system and the knight conferment system, a knight and the monarch they are loyal to are bound together for good or bad. Needless to say, the most solid guardian knight. Actually, there are also guardian knights of the same gender, but they are usually close friends who are willing to risk their lives for them. The relationship between Savannah and Renee is really hard to explain. A knight who betrays the one they are loyal to is the most despised. Helplessly, Savannah, who knows that she has already boarded a pirate ship, can only rely on Renee. However, when they see the terrified Savannah whenever Renee comes near, those who know the truth can't help but laugh secretly. As a top-notch preacher, Crow's voice is pleasant to listen to, and she has a rather deep understanding of the teachings of the East Mist Forest. She is definitely more than enough to preach the faith of the East Mist Forest. However, when faced with Kelly, who has 700 years of experience, when faced with the wood elf nobles, this wild elf, who is mysteriously 1 generation younger than her, is unable to take it. Then, can you explain why the original law is divided into 2 parts? What is the difference between the law of God and the law of man? There are quite a lot of repetitions between the 2 parts. According to the summary of jurisprudence, wouldn't repeated legislation cause chaos in the execution of a law and weaken the authority of the law? But that is what the doctrine says. This was decided by Lord Womians, so it can't be wrong. Being pressed into a corner, Crows could only repeat the concepts from the books. This level of preaching to the point of knowing the way, but not knowing the reason, was more than sufficient. However, it was evident that this wasn't enough to convince the people of the East Mist. Helpless, I shook my head and could only walk into the hall on the first floor that was being used as a temporary classroom. Cough. If it is possible, allow me to explain. Actually, I have quite a friendly relationship with Lord Womians, and I have heard him mention this before. Under the incomprehensible gaze of the crowd, I stretch out a finger and the silver light of law ripples on it, proving my identity as a law cultivator. It isn't impossible to cultivate two powers, but if one were to convert all of the power of holy light into the power of law like Momo, it would be equivalent to starting all over again. Furthermore, the two powers are similar and repetitive. Cultivating both at the same time is a typical example of an arduous and unrewarding task. Thus, my identity as a just knight, other than receiving the approval of Kolos, as expected of a god envoy in the eyes of others, it is a typical example of an arduous and unrewarding task. However, this is enough to prove that I am indeed qualified to lecture on law. Cough. Firstly, it is the difference between the law of God and the law of man. The law of God is determined by the gods, and it only has 13 heavy crimes. All of them are publicly acknowledged crimes that cannot be forgiven, and they are basically unchangeable. The crimes that we, the law job, can only be judged by the gods, while the law of man is something that the Church of the God of Law has to constantly revise and improve. The jurisdiction and sovereignty are bound together. The law of God can be used in any place that the order gods are looking at, while the law of man can only be used in situations where the sovereignty is supporting it. This is the main difference between the two. The other gods also have commandments such as punish evil, prohibit extravagance and desire, prohibit lies, and so on. However, other than their believers, the execution of these commandments would more or less be discounted. My 13 heavy crimes are publicly acknowledged, and I don't have to worry about the backlash from the other gods, local nobles, and royalty. Furthermore, it gives the law job a desire to eradicate evil deeds. It doesn't matter if others execute it or not, but the just knight has to execute it. However, this doesn't mean that the two of them are in conflict with each other. On the contrary, the two of them are actually the same thing. The law of God is the bottom line of the law of man. Since a crime is prohibited by the law of God, then the law of man is definitely not exempt from it. For example, the first crime of the 13 heavy crimes, those who willfully take the life of others for their own selfish desires shall be judged harshly by the God of law. Even after death, they will be punished by a mountain of swords and a sea of fire. There is also a corresponding clause in the law of man. The first clause of the crime of intentional homicide. Those who intentionally commit murder shall be sentenced to death or imprisonment of more than 10 years. However, if the crime is in conflict with the later clauses, such as self-defense and war of justice, the latter shall have a higher priority. It is the same crime, but the law of God has the tone of a religious persuasion. That last sentence that seems unnecessary to add additional crimes after death is actually a preparation for the future. On the other hand, the law of man is filled with ice-cold laws and punishments. There isn't a single bit of excess in it. Renee gets a little excited. She seems to have seen through the intricacies of the law. That is to say, the law job class only has to carry out the law of God. Then, what is the meaning of creating the law of man? It is prepared for countries and domain lords who believe in the God of law as their national religion. This law of man will obviously affect the interests of the local nobles. Aren't they worried that they will be collectively boycotted or even banned from spreading their religion? Kelly asks thoughtfully. She has been in the human society for a long time, and she understands how corrupt and hopeless the nobles are. How could they possibly accept this kind of law that would endanger their rule? I smile. This is also the doubt that I had expected. Indeed, in most places, the nobles only pay 1 gold coin for killing a commoner for no reason. In some places, the royal family can even casually confiscate the assets of merchants. Is this kind of evil law that is purely biased towards the ruling class acceptable? Our law of man has obviously offended their interests. It is inevitable that we would be met with hostility and even boycotts at the start of spreading our religion. However, it is impossible to ban it. After all, our Womians is a true god. Banning the spread of a true god is equivalent to rebelling against the entire order gods. Why do you think Womian's worked so hard to ascend to godhood? Isn't it all for this world? But it is meaningless to just not ban it. So, we need someone to set an example. If I'm a commoner or a merchant, on one hand, they would treat me as a donkey and a slave. On the other hand, they would at least treat me as a human. Actually, there's no need for me to hesitate where I would choose to live and work hard. Sulphur Mountain City is the best example. With sufficient population and resources flowing in, it would definitely bring about wealth and power. This is necessary for any territory. Thus, the faith of the God of Law is extremely beneficial to the development of a territory. All we need is a role model. So, you came to the Mist Country. Little Roland, you actually scammed your own people. Aren't you worried that after you become the national religion, you might be met with hostility from the neighboring kingdoms? Have you considered the possibility of it being extinguished before it could even rise? Kelly frowns and says, her worries are indeed very real. Of course, I have considered it. However, if the Donglan country goes on like this, wouldn't it be met with hostility? You're already surrounded by enemies on all sides. Since you're not far from destruction anyway, this is a pretty good straw to clutch at. Furthermore, if the God of Law becomes the national religion, with Sulphur Mountain City as an example, the country's strength would grow rapidly. Furthermore, a large number of Justice Knight and Judgmenters would greatly increase the country's defensive capabilities. Furthermore, they should be able to receive assistance from the origin of Law, Sulphur Mountain City. No matter how I look at it, the pros outweigh the cons, and what if we still refuse to accept it? Nothing much, we're just waiting. When the law job class is spread all over the world, when the teachings and laws of the God of Law are widely known by the people, the accumulated hatred and conflicts will one day explode. When that time comes, what awaits the nobles isn't a gentle abdication. The guillotine will be used until it rusts from the blood, and the gallows will be filled with dried corpses. Kelly instinctively shudders, as though she can already see the arrival of that day. Renee raises her doubts. According to the teachings, initiating a war is also a heavy crime. Doesn't that mean that we can't unify the Mist Country anymore? Isn't that unfair to us? No. Although initiating a war would indeed cause the law job class to lose the power of law, if it is a just war like aiding an ally that is being invaded or reclaiming a territory that has been taken away, it is allowed. Then, who will determine this justice? Beifong, who has been silently taking notes, asks a question for the first time and actually hits the main point. The God of Law Womians has one vote. The ruler has one vote and the majority of the people have one vote. If all three votes are in favor of war, then this war should be just. Since Womians has already turned into the embodiment of justice, his judgment should be fair and it should be acceptable to the believers. The questioner nods his head and sits down. The crowd starts asking new questions one by one. I have a question on, it is easy to explain. Initially, I just wanted to say it casually, but there are some things that can't be stopped once it starts. This lecture that is fated to be included in history continues for an entire day. Kolos, who is originally the lecturer, becomes the clerk. She buries her head to memorize the contents of today's lecture and distributes it to every believer. I can foresee that not long from now, the flower of law will bloom even more. Finally, from lecture to debate, from debate to lecture, when a marathon teaching of the teachings ends, Renee and Kelly look at each other and finally come to a conclusion. We, the Donglan Principality, have decided to recognize the God of Law as the national religion. However, you, Roland, have to be responsible for helping us to the end. Sigh, all right, I will just treat it as owing you all. Even though I grumble, the smile at the corner of my mouth can't fool anyone. Chapter 89. It was still that simple and crude palace, and it was still that young king. Desos was playing chess with his old friend and subordinate. But from a way he kept making stupid moves and retreating step by step, his mind wasn't on the chessboard at all. In the past, he would use his superior chess skills to swiftly deal with his old friend and then start to talk business while the other party was depressed. But this time, he wasn't as calm as he used to be. Hermit, Haven't you found her yet? Found her? Oh, that night princess. They changed their residence and are currently staying at the Church of the God of Law. Attacking the Church of the True God is a huge problem. Is it worth it for a woman? The one who spoke was a brown-haired young man with squinted eyes. He wore a monocle and looked refined. If one were to look at his appearance, no one would think that he was the chief intelligence officer of the Ottoman Empire. He was also the personal financial advisor of the emperor and one of the most influential people in the country. Don't joke with me. You know that I'm not looking for that little lass. I'm looking for the woman with the angel bloodline, the woman who was able to suppress the demon sword with a single hand. Dasos was able to tell that Svina was a woman in disguise with a single look because of his keen observation skills. After that day, he was also guessing if the two princesses who had the same face but completely opposite temperament were two different people. Gemini star. Another Gemini who symbolizes inauspiciousness. No wonder the Mist royal family wanted to hide her existence. All right, combining history and his imagination had a basis. At least in the eyes of Dasos, they were two completely different people. The most obvious evidence was the performance of the demon sword. Hermit, you should know how much I paid to awaken the Scarlet Conqueror to the third stage. But that woman was able to tame the third form of the demon sword right from the start. When she returned the demon sword to me, the emotions that the demon sword sent to me were actually pity, fear, and relaxation. There's only one explanation for this. The demon sword actually submitted completely in front of her. I'm afraid that she is able to use the full form of the demon sword. Impossible. This Scarlet Conqueror, forged by the tyrant of the Blood Sea, is always thirsty for blood. In order to use this sword, you have sacrificed at least 10,000 lives. Until now, we have to prepare hundreds of death row prisoners to sacrifice to the sword every year. How old is that girl? How can she suppress the demon sword? But she did, didn't she? Is that why you want to propose to her? You're still unwavering, even when you're rejected in person? No, I'm tired of looking at that delicate and fragile vase. I suddenly feel that the blood angel bathed in fresh blood is pretty good too. I'm really infatuated with that woman. What a pity. I didn't expect her to actually like women. What a pity. Are you going to give up? Then why are you still looking for her? Why do you think the Mist royal family is hiding this trump card? Do you think that they will obediently pledge their loyalty to me on the day of the enthronement ceremony? Do you think that the half-angel, who is so arrogant that she doesn't even look me in the eye, will kneel and pledge her loyalty to me on the day of the enthronement ceremony? Hermit shook his head as he recalled the war angel who was so proud that she wouldn't even touch the ground. Some people are born to not bow down to others. I don't think that she will bow down to anyone. But we don't have any other path of retreat. Either we get through this, or we fall short and become a second-rate country. Yes, this enthronement ceremony to force the various countries to submit to us is a form of oppression towards the smaller countries. At the same time, it is also a challenge to the dignity and strength of the Ottoman Empire. If we succeed, we will naturally become a super empire. If we fail, the countries that were originally subordinate to us will be shaken, and it isn't impossible for them to fall to a second-rate country. This is a huge gamble. It concerns the fate of the Ottoman Empire for the next 200 years. We can't afford to lose. I understand. At this moment, we can't afford any variables. I will send scouts to investigate the secrets of the people in Donglan. No, wait for a moment. It is enough to send a few demon vulture knights to keep an eye on them. I have already sent out the crows. If we keep an eye on them, it won't be convenient for them to do anything. Crows? They aren't trustworthy at all. They spend their days prophesying and calculating those ridiculous doomsday. They are really a bunch of lunatics. However, mad dogs are irrational. Their bites are usually very painful. As he spoke, Dasos laughed out loud. Of course, he knew that crows weren't reliable. However, mad dogs also have their uses. If they're released to bite people, they don't need to be rational. I almost know why you call me here. Yes, with the Donglan Principality as the core, come up with a few more contingency plans. Do we need to prepare for the worst? Remove the Donglan Principality from the alliance this time. No, The worst possibility is that the Donglan Principality will lead the other countries to declare war on us. Moreover, our military forces will be pinned down. Hermit nodded. He understood Dasos. Preparing for the worst was an old habit of his. However, this didn't mean that he didn't have the confidence to complete the enthronement ceremony. On the contrary, the fact that he had prepared so many plans in advance showed that he was determined to win the alliance. Others thought that he was a straightforward and ambitious person who didn't care about trifles. Only those who grew up with him knew that Dasos's greatest strength was his meticulousness. Perhaps it was because he was prepared for all kinds of terrible situations that he was able to reach where he was today. Don't be anxious. Chess is played step by step. Let's use mad dogs to test the waters first. Huh, you're distracted. Checkmate, I won. To me, getting the envoy from the East Mist communal country to stay with us wasn't just a sudden idea without a purpose. There were still 3 months before the enthronement ceremony. It wasn't too long, but it wasn't too short either. It would be inconceivable if Dasos didn't do something to regain his face in his own territory, the capital. Moreover, the relationship between me and the diplomatic mission would inevitably become closer and closer. Rather than being discovered to be overly suspicious in the future, it would be better to directly contact them. If we were together, it would be convenient for security, and I could also conveniently teach that little girl a lesson. As for the Church of the God of Law, it could only be considered as a pleasant surprise. Initially, we only intended to build a court here as a place for law jobs to train and learn. Without the support of the local authority, it would be impossible for us to conduct trials. On the other hand, arbitration could still be conducted as planned. Trials are based on the authority and the laws as the rules to judge crimes. It is a way to deal with crimes from a higher position. On the other hand, arbitration is where both parties to the contract and the arbitrator are on equal footing, and it is agreed that the arbitrator will be the one to make the decision. Without a doubt, in a place where the authority doesn't recognize the law jobs will be involved in arbitration for a long period of time. But in reality, due to the lack of authority, arbitration requires a higher understanding of the law. In a certain world, one must have at least 8 years of experience in the legal profession before they can be involved in arbitration. Of course, this is just a big talk. In reality, when it comes down to it, it is just a small matter. Antley, didn't Uncle Lee just owe you 3 silver coins? He said that he would return it to you in 2 months. Don't be angry. 2 months? After 2 months, it will be at least 4 silver coins with interest. 3.5. 4. All right, I will be the middleman. Antley, give me a little more time, and Uncle Lee will return me a little more interest. How about 4 silver coins after 3 months? Deal. Agreed. Although it seems ridiculous, in reality, this is how arbitration is done. The only difference is the amount of money involved, and whether the parties involved are individuals, merchant guilds, or organizations. Of course, if both parties are unable to come to an agreement, the law job, as the arbitrator, can forcefully make an arbitration in front of Womian's divine statue. In that case, one party's interest will be harmed, and at that time, the arbitration will be carried out using Womian's god power. Without authority, there is no jurisdiction. Naturally, there is no right to judge crimes. But based on the principle of freedom of contract, the law job can become the middleman and borrow Womian's god power and divine concept to do civil arbitration. The arbitration system has been in operation in Sulphur Mountain City for a few decades, but it is something new on the surface. Very quickly, the sensitive merchants discovered the advantages of this system. Its greatest advantage is that it is fast, very fast. In the past, if it was just a contract or a product dispute, it would take at least 1 to 2 years to settle the lawsuit in the local court. Even if the civil compensation is paid, the merchant might have already gone bankrupt. That is the classic case of winning the lawsuit, but losing your life. And if the contract involved a certain noble or high official, then you can only blame it on your bad luck. On the other hand, arbitration only involved 3 parties, so reaching an agreement was extremely fast. Usually, it would only take a few days. To merchants, time is life. Not to mention, The contract and arbitration in front of the gods were under Womian's protection, so no one dared to refuse to honor it. That strange magic incantation, forceful execution of the contract, made it impossible for rich people to hide. Kajisi City, which is built along the river, is connected to all directions. It is a famous business city with merchants gathering. This new way of settling disputes immediately spread from 1 to 10 and 10 to 100. To think that there is a God to guarantee the fairness of the contract. I don't have to worry about those ruffians going against their words anymore. This is great. Thus, when new business contracts are signed, they don't forget to add a clause. If there is a dispute, go to XX Land Church of Law for arbitration. Thus, in less than a week, this court was squeezed in by thousands of new believers, directly rising to the level of a local church. All right, according to the rules of the gods, when there are enough believers, the true God Womians starts to pay attention to this place, and this place becomes his holy land. The Church of Law branch in Kajisi City is born. When the law of humans still needs a long time to receive the support of the sovereign and step onto the stage of history. This new arbitration system becomes a powerful weapon for the true God of Law Womians to expand his faith. And such a thing happens in many corners of the Aichi continent. Thus, in the divine realm of another plane, Womians is currently obtaining his first derivative divine job, God of Contracts. The essence of fairness is written into the content of freedom of contracts. He, who is a weak god, is gradually evolving into a mid-level god. I didn't expect this at all. Adding an arbitration system to the law is something I casually did by imitating the judicial system of my previous world. I really didn't expect that this arbitration system, which wasn't valued much in my previous world, would blossom and bear fruit in this other world. In this chaotic medieval world, this kind of neutral contract guarantee, enforcement, and dispute resolution is indeed in high demand. The reason why it wasn't popular in my previous world is probably due to the lack of a sovereign guarantee. Even if arbitration results, it would be difficult to enforce it. And in this magical world where a true God acts as the guarantor of contracts, arbitration is naturally much more powerful. And to me, such accidents are naturally the more the merrier. And this accident also made me start to take this physical body and the bloodline of the arbiter seriously. On the left is chaos, on the right is order, and I stand in the middle as an arbiter. The result will definitely be offending both sides at the same time. System, are you reminding me that my goal is a typical example of strenuous and unrewarding work? The local churches are already under the watchful eyes of the true gods. The God of Law doesn't build churches, which means that he doesn't throw churches everywhere for the sake of preaching. Attacking a church is no different from slapping the face of a god. And as a resident, the safety of us would naturally soar. But even so, I can still see dozens of spies among the visiting believers. Hey, big brother, it is indeed a good idea for a big bloke like you to disguise as a traveling merchant. But can you change out of your military boots? They still have the emblem of the Azure Dragon Knight Order on them. Does your family use high-quality military horses to transport the fodder carriages? Is the money you earn enough to feed them with oats? The emblem of nobility on your sword. Can you be more professional? To think that you can still laugh. All right, regardless of whether I am interested in the Donglan Principality that shone brilliantly that day or the church of this new true god, the way this city expresses its hospitality to its guests is really too much for me to handle. Lord Oracle, if you have the time to play with them, why don't you come and help us? After the Judgment Court was upgraded to a local church, Kolos, who has the highest rank in the church, fell for the same trick again and was forced to become a local bishop. But unfortunately, even though she was promoted, not only did she not get a raise in salary, she didn't get more subordinates either. Instead, her workload increased exponentially. This wasn't a large church, but the merchants were all impatient to come here to resolve the accumulated contract disputes. The average number of visitors was over 100, and the queue had already reached Beifeng's stall outside the courtyard. As for the receptionists and arbiters, there were 2 gray elves, Kolos, and her 2 subordinates, which added up to a total of 5 people. It was all over. Although Kolos was doing her best to raise the first batch of divine clergy, it was still too early for them to start from scratch. Right now, it would be up to Kolos and the others to work overtime. That was why, even though Kolos became much more respectful towards me after that lecture, she couldn't help but get angry when she saw me, who clearly had a good understanding of the law, idling around all day. Lord Oracle, if you have the time, can you help me take a look at the Goblin Merchant contract? There are some parts that I'm hesitant about, and I need your explanation. I still have some matters to attend to today. Let's talk about it when I get back. After saying that, I unhesitatingly turned around and ran. Kolos wanted to chase after me, but the sea of people in front of me forced her to stop helplessly. This time, I really wasn't trying to avoid it. I really did have matters to attend to. Today, I had an appointment with someone. My destination wasn't too far away. It was an empty field with few people. I leaned against it under a rotting old tree and poured some wine on the ground. The gray fog gathered to form a silver specter, but it didn't have the usual coldness and fierceness of a vengeful spirit. This was an existence that was somewhere between a ghost and a Valkyrie. Hey, Uncle Cain, I'm here again. I've already resolved your granddaughter's matter. The tuition fees I left behind are enough for her to use for 10 years. This time, you can give me your sword, right? After receiving Harlow's hint, if I still couldn't find my target, wouldn't I be too useless? I found Cain's soul on the first day, but unfortunately, even though I chatted with him about many things over the past few days and even helped him a lot, Cain still remained tight-lipped about his sword. Lad, I've already seen your sincerity. So, let me tell you a story. If I had a mirror, I would definitely be embarrassed. This specter was very much like an NPC in a game. First, he would run errands for me. Then he would tell me his background story. Most of the story was about him, and in the end, he would even have to guide him to heaven. The village was threatened by the magical beasts, and the enemy's army could pass through his outpost at any moment. That young knight was faced with a dilemma. Should he obey the king's orders and guard the outpost loyally, watching as the village in danger was destroyed, or should he disobey the orders and abandon the honor of a knight to protect the village? Young lad, if it were you, what would you choose? All right, I knew that it would be such a question. This was as unsolvable as saving one's wife or one's mother after falling into the water. Not answering, it was the best answer. But to me, I had already done too many of these unsolvable questions. From the very start, the answer wasn't even within the scope of the questions. I would take action in advance and first complete the mission before going to protect the village. Or I could just kill off the magical beasts that threaten the village before pulling the villagers over to help me complete the mission. The simplest way would be to bring all of the villagers along with me to guard the outpost. This doesn't meet the requirements. Whose requirements? The one who came up with the question? Or did you set the requirements yourself? As long as the results are good, there's no point in caring about the process. No, that's impossible. I can't do any of the things that you asked for. Even if you can't do it, I can. To be honest, if I were in your position, I would have thought of a way to eradicate the magical beasts before they pose a threat to me. Besides, even if you can't do it, can't you call for help? They also have their own mission. How can they use their personal matters to tarnish the honor of another knight? This is an old concept from that era. No wonder you couldn't get over it, even after a few decades. I am here to test if you have the ability to do what I can't do. The old knight immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. All right, as expected, we still have to fight at the end. 19 seconds, including the time needed to draw and sheath the sword, the undead binding formation that I had set up long ago was activated. A holy knight's signature skill, dispel the undead. Then, I raised my sword and struck Cain, causing the bound Cain to fall to the ground. This isn't fair. What? Do you think that I will be like those foolish knight and compete with you in swordsmanship when you reach legend rank? After fighting for 300 rounds, I was defeated by you. Didn't you say whether it's fair for a legend rank expert to bully a bronze rank rookie? Look, it's so easy. Young man, could it be that I was wrong? After hesitating for a moment, I gave the final answer. No, you weren't wrong. The choice that you made is worthy of our respect. The one that was wrong is the world that forced you to make such a cruel choice. The old knight saved the village, but because of that, he didn't complete his mission and lost the honor and status of a knight. Because of that, his family was implicated as well. For the rest of his life, he constantly questioned himself on whether he was wrong or not. In the end, he died of depression. Pale Justice is the name of his soul sword. It is also the cry that he constantly interrogates his own soul. Am I wrong? Could it be that upholding justice is wrong? Should I just watch as the village is destroyed? Loka Town, the village that you saved back then. It has been 70 years, and it has grown from a village with a population of 300 to a small town with a population of close to 10,000. You did well. Is that so? That's great. After finishing his words, Kane's soul starts to dissipate with a smile on his face. The only thing that remains is the ice tear stone that is emitting a cold white light. Pale Justice Soul Stone contains a portion of the soul and power of the legend rank Holy Knight Kane. Fuse it with Kane's sword to obtain the complete Pale Justice. What does it matter whether justice is pale or not? As long as one is able to act according to one's conscience, what does it have to do with the voices of the outside world? This is what I wanted to say, but in the end, I didn't say it. To the old Kane, the evaluation of the later generations isn't important. The continued prosperity of the village that he saved is enough to prove that his choice wasn't wrong. So what else is there to say? But reality is often crueler than a fairy tale. Loka Town? There was indeed such a place before, but it has already disappeared in history. At that time, the kings were fighting for the throne, and the flames of war were everywhere. In the past 70 years, the place has experienced at least 5 destructive wars. Even if the villagers survived, they should have died in the wars that followed. This is the answer that I got from the Civil Affairs Department. Touching the soul stone that is emitting a cold radiance, I shook my head. The road is long. Let's take it slow. Suddenly, I thought of something again. That's not right. Aren't I going to look for Kane's sword? Who knows where he lost it? Did I get tricked again? The village has already disappeared in history. Where am I going to find a sword? Old man, are you still there? Can you point the way before you ascend to heaven? Chapter 90. The Celestial Tower, to me, is a name that leaves a deep impression on me, but one that should have long disappeared into the past. They are currently an internationally renowned evil organization. In the eyes of the world, they are similar to the famous Drool Radical Society, Drool Association that treats animals kindly, a bunch of rabid dogs that bite anyone they catch. Just like how every notorious organization would have a lofty banner in the beginning, the Celestial Tower was also built with lofty ideals in the beginning. Regardless of whether it is the astrologer who is proficient in stargazing, the witches who are proficient in divination, or the mages who are proficient in divination, from a certain perspective, they are all able to predict the future. Thus, under the call of a highly respected mage, an organization with the goal of using divination to make life better and avoid disasters that could be avoided was established. Then, how did an organization with such good intentions turn into the infamous rabid dogs it is today? Initially, the Celestial Tower's early warning of natural disasters was indeed effective. In that era, it was different from the current useless divination magic. The divination magic system back then was rather developed and effective. Through the connection with the god of fate and the threat of fate, they were able to avoid natural disasters and disasters. After a golden period of development, roughly around AD 200, the Celestial Tower met with a problem. No matter how much they paid, they were unable to predict what would happen after a certain period of time. In the end, they came to a conclusion. Starting from a certain year, the He continent was actually a blank slate. If it was a lone diviner, he would only think of his own limits. However, when all of the diviners came to the same conclusion, there is only one explanation. The world is destroyed and there is no future. All right, even though predicting the end of the world isn't a good thing, at the very least, knowing that it will happen, they should be able to think of a way to overcome it. However, the outcome was futile. No matter how they prophesied and divined, there was only one answer. This world has no future, and they are unable to determine where the destruction will come from. Of course, I can understand the reason why they are unable to make a prophecy. All life in this world originates from order and chaos. Naturally, you're unable to predict where the destruction will come from and where the destruction will come from. All right, this was just like the torturous period of death row inmates waiting for their execution. Unable to get an answer, they could only watch helplessly as the end of the world approached day by day. They fell into despair, but a coincidence gave them hope. Due to the interference of the Celestial Tower, a certain young man who was prophesied to become a hero met with an accident, after which that future became invisible. Will the prophet's actions affect the future? The early death of historical heroes and great figures would have an impact on the entire history. If there were enough fluctuations in the fate of the entire world, would the doomed world still be able to survive? All right, desperate times call for desperate measures. Under this indescribable logic, the Celestial Tower seems to have found the most direct method to change the future, killing heroes and historical figures in advance. An ordinary seer would try their best to prevent their prophecies from affecting their targets. However, the Celestial Tower, who did the exact opposite, began their crazy actions, hunting down historical figures, causing the future to be unknown. This isn't an easy task. After all, it is hard for a targeted prophecy to reach a proper conclusion. Most of the time, prophecies are based on luck. If the seer were to actively participate in the prophecy, it would cause the outcome of the prophecy to be messed up. However, if that unlucky fellow were to be caught red-handed, even if he were to become a legendary hero in the future, would he be able to resist it in his infancy? The Dragon Slayer, the hero who saved the world, was slandered as the son of a demon. The great craftsman who invented advanced technology was treated as an unpardonable villain. The saintess who saved the country from danger was treated as a witch and burned alive. The highly respected seers in the past became liars who spouted nonsense. Under their reckless actions, the path of fate became a mess. Without a doubt, this is equivalent to flipping the table in a game that they are destined to lose. In any case, they will die in the end. Who knows? There might be more variables in the outcome. This is the hysteria of the seers who were forced into a corner. Due to them going overboard, the line of fate of the god of fate turned into a mess, alarming the order gods who didn't interfere much with the mortal world. They sent down a god's punishment, destroying the headquarters of the Celestial Tower. Only then did they calm down. After the god's punishment, the god of fate retracted most of the prophecy abilities and prophecy spells that he left in the mortal world. Furthermore, he severed the connection between his own hall of fate and the seers in the mortal world, causing the standard of prophecy in the entire world to plummet. That was a matter that happened 1,600 years ago. Even now, the prophecy of the apocalypse still hasn't arrived. Instead, the crime of killing a future hero has surfaced. Naturally, the Celestial Tower becomes a huge joke. However, I know that their prophecy isn't wrong. A calamity is right before our eyes. From then on, prophecy against a certain person's future became the greatest taboo for a seer. Most of the seers in the modern era only prophesize about events and not people. However, it is apparent that the Celestial Tower isn't completely destroyed because of this. They're still secretly carrying out their past actions in a corner. However, it is hard to tell whether they're going crazy in order to save the world or if they're simply taking revenge on the Order gods and the entire world. 300 years ago, the prophecy regarding me and Cavendish was made by them. Furthermore, the reason why we were forced into a corner by them is also due to them interfering in the dark. In my travels in the future, I discovered their dark hands hiding in the shadows. Thus, after turning into Lord Yongya, I dug them out from the corners one by one and killed them over and over again. However, it is a pity that looking at the charred corpse in front of me, the constellation of stars, and the emblem of a single eye on his finger, it seems that I didn't do enough back then. Dead remnants of the Celestial Tower, you all sure have guts to appear in front of me. In the pitch-black room, the seats are lit up one by one. The participants are silent as usual. Finally, The person on the main seat speaks up. Dasos is already rushing us. Has the spy not reported back yet? Oomph. The king of winter wolves? Lord Lamos, I think that we should kill him first and not work together with him. Calm down. Our current goal is to wipe out the Mist bloodline. We can talk about the other matters later. It has already been a week and there is still no news. Dasos has already expressed his dissatisfaction with us. It isn't wrong to say that they are mad dogs. When the prophecy spell is no longer as developed as it was in the ancient times, their target has changed from future heroes and historical figures to heroes and influential figures. Any high-ranking person who works with them has to be on tenterhooks, as they might stab them in the back at any moment. You should know that the Church of True Gods belongs to the territory of gods. The prophecy spell of humans is greatly discounted, and our spy has also met with some trouble. We sent out a few drool who can transform into crows. In the church, Cassio is dozing off under a tree. However, a migratory bird flies past the sky and a long golden line streaks across the sky. A wild goose falls to the ground, and a few knight hurriedly runs over to pick it up. This free game is just the perfect addition for dinner. Although I don't know why Brother Roland wants me to intercept all the birds, it is a good opportunity for me to train my archery skills. All of the crows were shot down by the archers. If it wasn't for the fact that they ran fast enough, they might have been turned into dinner. Looks like they are prepared. Where are our scouts? Our master thief is here. They were all blown up into the sky. The courtyard is filled with goblin dark mines and various kinds of serial bombs and alarm robots. It is even more heavily guarded than the Goblin Bank. We suspect that there are at least 4 to 5 master engineers stationed in the church. At the corner of the courtyard, Grim is doing something. However, just as he is halfway through, he pricks up his ears and grabs his basket to run. As expected, there are people chasing after him. Darn, Grim, you are burying mines everywhere again. How many times have I told you that engineering products are dangerous objects and you can't just throw them around? What if they explode passersby? Even if they don't explode outsiders, it's not good if they explode flowers and plants. Look at how many times we have repaired the walls and courtyard in the past few days. Yesterday, when I met a mason, he actually asked me if I wanted to register for a monthly ticket. Say, if I were to change the Church of the Law to the Church of the God of Explosions, would Woomians strike me down with a bolt of lightning? Hey, listen to me. Stop running. Dear. Finally, he has a name. He is a law incantation user who follows Kolos around. His characteristics. Yep, everyone should have seen it. He is extremely talkative. However, he seems to be the natural enemy of the Silent Grim, which is why I unhesitatingly gave him the task of watching over the maniac of explosions. Where's our master spy, Phoenix Butterfly? He can easily disguise himself as a believer and enter. With his experience, he should be able to fool the holy knight who seems to be strolling around but is actually guarding the entrance. Phoenix Butterfly is known as the man of 1,000 faces. He is especially skilled at disguising himself as all kinds of women. This time, he successfully disguised himself as a noblewoman and successfully got close to his main target, Princess Renee. However, strike of condemnation. What followed was a silver holy sword that flickered with silver light. It spun and flew out diagonally. I accidentally let it slip from my hand. No matter how hard Renee tries to act cute, she is unable to hide the fact that she actually swung her sword and turned it into a flying sword. Kelly shakes her head helplessly. Although Renee has improved rapidly after switching to become a Justice Knight, even though Roland's teachings are methodical, her talent in swordsmanship, which has long passed her maturation stage, is still too lousy. At the very least, within a short period of time, her swordsmanship is still so lousy that it is hard for one to look at it directly. Looking at the direction where the sword flew to, she sees Roland's sacred sword pierced between the thighs of a noblewoman. She immediately panics. Priest, come quickly. There is an injured person. Man? Spy? Knight, come over. You should contact the coffin shop first. Hearing that his most capable spy was exposed for no reason, as the head of the Ottoman branch of the Celestial Tower, Lamos I, is in disbelief. I feel that as long as we get close to that church, something will happen. Is it the Church of the God of Law or the Church of the God of Misfortune? Damn it. Right, where's our master stealth? Shadowless Walker Dakia? There has never been a place that he couldn't enter. What happened to him? He isn't an opponent who would be defeated by misfortune. Could it be that even he failed? He, Shadowless Walker Dakia, is extremely famous in certain regions. It is said that there isn't a treasure vault that he can't enter. He once stole the treasure of the Blue Dragon. Lamos, I had to spend a lot of effort to invite him into the guild. He is just a silver rank thief, but what allows him to do as he pleases is a legendary artifact. Sewer Cloak, legendary artifact. The wearer transforms into a rat and gains 95% physical damage immunity relying on this artifact. He is able to casually sneak into the treasure vault of any kingdom. Even if he were to meet a powerful enemy who sees through his transformation, he is still able to make use of his physical damage immunity to escape. Witchlord's last message was, how can there be a cat that knows magic? It is already time for dinner at the Church of the God of Law. When a certain cat jumps onto the table, I pick it up and throw it to the side. Go play at the side. Who knows if you ate dead rats and cockroaches? Bastard, I'm not a real cat. Furthermore, even if I was a real cat, I would be served with meat and fish every day. Even if I were to catch rats, I would only be playing with them. Why would I eat them? I originally wanted to show you a treasure. You don't know how to appreciate my kindness. Forget it. What treasure? Hearing the word treasure, my heart is moved. Hee, a transformation cloak. It suits you very well. Why don't you try it on? Hee, do you think that I am a fool? For you to give me such a good thing, it must be a cursed item. Will I transform into a rat or a squirrel? It can't be that I will transform into a slime, right? Looks like I guessed correctly. You darn cat, there isn't any dinner for you anymore. Go eat rats. At the same time, in the courtyard, a short figure covered in wounds is struggling in the bushes. Damn it, what a scary meow alien. To think that it knows martial arts and even trains in both magic and martial arts. I almost died in its hands. Cough. Luckily, it took the cloak and left. Cough. I vomited blood again. Looks like my injuries aren't light. I won't be able to climb over the wall or the main door. Then, I will go through the sewers. He struggles to open the entrance of the sewers and barely manages to squeeze himself in. However, he realizes that someone is already one step ahead of him and is waiting for him in the sewers. How could there be someone here? If it's someone from the same trade, then it'll be fine. Please make way. Wait, it isn't a real person. It is a goblin, self-destructing dummy. To actually go through the sewers. Who is so bored? Boom, boom. This time, there's obviously a lot of explosives. The entire house is shaking. When my gaze turns towards the dining table, Grim immediately stands up to report. Report, according to your instructions, all the unstable explosives have been thrown into the sewers for disposal. Sewers? Hee, whose thief is so unlucky. Don't worry, Grim, you did well. Keep up the good work. Ding. Congratulations. Your aura of plague has harmed the 100 target and upgraded to aura of misfortune. The effects of the aura has been increased by 50%, and it will prioritize harming your enemies. There are already 100 of them. Is 1,000 still far away? Please keep up the good work. That child is really unlucky. However, you better go and chat with him. There's an old friend of yours there. At this moment, the system is unwilling to be left out. When I really reach the site of the explosion, I notice the familiar astrologer's emblem. Naturally, I know that I have met an old friend, and I immediately fly into a rage. Something like a rabid dog is bound to form a nest if you see one. Kelly, I will leave this place to you. Diana and Kolos, follow me. We're going to hunt a rabid dog. Chapter 91. The Celestial Tower is very troublesome. From the day they became the public enemy of the world, they split up and hid underground. Most of their members are spellcasters. There are priests, drool, mages, warlocks, witches, and witch doctors. Regardless of a race, spellcasters are rare and precious. Thousands of years of secret inheritance gave these spellcasters sufficient strength and connections. In this world, strength and connections can easily be exchanged for authority, not to mention the help of divination magic. The most dangerous aspect of the Celestial Tower is that their members are usually hiding in the upper echelons of the humans and elves. Even among the members, they only use code names. No one would know which member is hiding before they go crazy, making them extremely secretive and hard to guard against. A bunch of venomous snakes hiding by one side, ready to bite one at any moment. No matter how one thinks about it, it sends chills down one's spine. After realizing that I am being targeted by the Celestial Tower, even though it is already deep into the night, I still rush out of the door without hesitation. I understand them. If the spies that I have recently are their eyes, this bunch of troublesome people doesn't know the meaning of restraint and moderation. The failure of the investigation will only cause them to take risks out of desperation. Thus, rather than waiting for them to come knocking on my door, I might as well take the initiative to attack. But the moment I step out of the door, I remember a small problem. Harloise, whose Celestial Tower ring is this? Sniff it and find it for me. Sniff. Sniff your sister. I am a cat, not a dog. No, I'm not a cat either. It is all your unfilial disciples' fault. All right, looking at this stupid cat who keeps biting my finger, I don't want to remind her that in front of my tightened body, her claws and teeth are unable to break through my defense. How can you belittle yourself? The potential of a cat alien is limitless, and they can conquer the world. All right, stop biting me. I'm not joking. I will get straight to the point. I added a new function for you previously. New function? No wonder I've been feeling weird for the past 2 days. I will fight it out with you. Sit down. Hand. Harloise immediately sits in a dog position before sticking out her tongue and extending her cat paws. This is one of the new functions, specially prepared for the Queen of Banshees, who is getting more and more disobedient. Woo, you are too much. I have already agreed to work together with you. I am already in this state because of you. How can you still treat me like this? No matter what, I am still your teacher. The tearful cat alien looks exceptionally pitiful. Diana and Kolos, or the spectators, are filled with sympathy. They even start glaring at me, the cat abuser. Stop grabbing me. Have you forgotten our magic pet contract? Your emotions can be transmitted to me. Do you think I don't know if you're really crying or not? All right, the next second the tears stopped flowing. The black cat's face actually showed a contemplative expression. After a while, it sent me a message. All right, the cat alien I can give you. As long as you promise to help me take revenge on 2 people, no, 2 gods, until they fall, I will obediently become your pet, dedicating all of my strength and knowledge to you. I can even transform into a physical body to serve you in bed. Although I have never touched a man before, my techniques are definitely not inferior to the Dark Elves. Even though it is a flirtatious topic, even though it is in the form of a cute cat, the endless hatred towards the gods has turned into a tangible black fog. The hatred and venom in her words and eyes are still so terrifying. Even though Kolos and Diana didn't hear anything, they instinctively raised their weapons in defense. Perhaps this cursed black cat that brings misfortune is the true form of the Queen of Banshees as an undead. Time brings endless power and knowledge to a person. Even though she fell into my hand by accident, she was unable to make a comeback. I have never dared to underestimate Harloise. It is precisely because I dare not underestimate her that I unhesitatingly used the once-in-a-lifetime magic pet contract to forcefully bind her to my side. I definitely believe that if I am not around, she can turn the entire underground world upside down by herself. You don't have to talk about serving me in bed. I am not Bayfeng, nor am I an idiot who will be fooled by a fake physical body. 2 gods. Tell me who it is first before I can consider it. If you tell me that it is Ale and Roland, I will definitely not be able to deal with them. Naturally, I won't agree to it. Harloise mentally spits out 2 names and stares at me expectantly. If I am not mistaken, they are both true gods of the Elven faction. One is already on my list of long-term targets, while the other is an old acquaintance of mine. Since it is convenient for me, I can make this deal. So it is the former guardian god of the elves. Should I say that traitors are more hated than murderers? Fine. Great. It is settled then. Don't we need to sign a contract? Keeping promises is one of your few strong points. Since you have agreed, it is more effective than any other contract. If we really sign a contract, I will be taking advantage of you, and I will still have to worry about you finding loopholes and going back on your word. It seems that she really understands me. The latter half of her sentence is the main point. Perhaps it is the misophobia of a lawyer. I am indeed a misophobe when it comes to promises that I personally make. However, if it is a forced or obviously unfair contract, I will most likely go back on my word. In modern civil law, contracts that are obviously unfair or forced can be canceled. However, in this world, Roland conforms to the current mainstream of society and sets a contract that cannot be canceled. All right, I will write it in my log. Now you can rest easy, right? Hurry up and fulfill the duties of a pet dog. This time, Harloise didn't retort. Instead, she excitedly somersaulted and obediently sniffed the ring in my hand. After a few seconds, this stupid cat fell into deep thought. What's wrong? Your current sense of smell should be a special magical sense of smell. It is at least twice as strong as that of a typical police dog. Have you still not noticed? After a while, Harloise finally raised her head with a hesitant expression. There is only a burnt stench. I can't smell anything at all. This time, it was our turn to stare at each other. Thinking about that burnt corpse, it is only natural that she couldn't smell anything. But soon after, Harloise suddenly ran towards the courtyard. I remember that there is still a cloak of his. All right, volunteering to work and being forced to serve are two completely different things. 2 minutes later, we had another companion. Cassio, who was almost bored to death, volunteered to go with us. Considering the hunting and tracking abilities that a centaur archer should possess, I didn't reject him. Wait, if Cassio goes, I will go as well. Someone volunteered to join us, but we tried our best to ignore him. In terms of tracking ability, a beast tamer is definitely much stronger than a pure archer. There is no one in this city that I can't find. What do you want? This fellow might seem honest, but in reality, he is exceptionally cunning. Furthermore, he is the classic example of someone who wouldn't wake up without benefits. How could he possibly volunteer? Beifeng nods his head. That cloak that can transform into a rat. It should be the legendary sewer cloak. All right, I really don't want to ask anymore, nor don't want to think about what he intends to do with that cloak. If it wasn't for the fact that time is of the essence, I would have already started beating him up. But considering that a beast tamer is indeed skilled in tracking, what he said is the truth. I can only temporarily suppress the urge to beat him up in my heart and feign civility with him. Just as I was about to agree, the excited Beifeng blows a silent whistle, as though he has come to a conclusion from my expression. In an instant, a few stray dogs run over, a few rats crawl out of the underground pipes, and even an owl descend from the sky. You bastard, you win. Deal. Wait, I don't need it anymore. Not far away, 2 tattered carriages are parked in an alley. A few black-clothed men are stealthily moving haystacks down from the carriages. At the corner of the church, there is already a small pile of haystacks, and a black-clothed man is lighting a fire. However, perhaps due to the strong wind at night, he failed to light the fire several times. Now he is angrily throwing the match on the ground and stepping on it. There is a spellcaster who is obviously maintaining a concealment magic. But even if he is able to conceal it, I can still see him from my position. Looking at that unlucky fellow, I can't help but think of a rumor. It is said that due to offending the god of fate too thoroughly, the god of fate, Cadio, who wields both luck and misfortune, placed a malevolent curse on this cockroach-like organization. As long as one joins this organization, the system of karma will be activated and they will forever be at the lowest point of their lives. Under normal circumstances, if one's luck is bad, it is easy for them to fail in their tasks, stepping on dog poop or getting bitten by a cat while walking, so it is fine as long as they are careful. However, if they meet my halo of plague, it should be called the halo of broom now. Those whose luck is worse than mine will cause a series of accidents, and this kind of misfortune becomes fatal. In the end, all misfortune will turn into unlucky opportunities. What are you waiting for? Get rid of this bunch of unlucky fellows. All right, other than that mage, this bunch of unlucky fellows who came to burn down the Church of a True God are just the lowest level pawns, so they are dealt with in an instant. Then, under the furious Bafing's interrogation, our destination is clear. The temporary station is the royal family's astrology platform that really suits their identity. But, since they are able to use the royal facilities, there's a certain emperor who is unwilling to lose face just like that. Why don't we reconsider? Considering this point, Diana, who has been getting closer to Renee and the others recently, hesitates. If we were to anger the Ottoman Emperor once more, given that we are currently in the territory of the Ottoman Empire, it is one thing for us to escape, but the envoy from the Donlan Principality will be implicated as well. This should be his way of probing us. If we were to cower and show our fear, he would only become more vicious in the future. Since he is playing according to the rules of the shadows, naturally, we have to follow suit. If he stretches out his hand, we will chop off his hand. If he stretches out his claws, we will chop off his claws. At the very least, we have to make him feel pain. Besides, the Mist bloodline. The Mist bloodline never fears a challenge. They are here for us, so how can we cower? Cowering will only make the villains even more savage. It seems that the battle outside the city walls has attracted the attention of the people in the church. The royal knight escorts Kelly and Renee out. Renee's words make me nod my head slightly. However, what she says next causes Kelly and the knight to pale in fright. I want to go too. Big brother Roland, didn't you say that the battlefield is always the best classroom? You also said that I am in dire need of actual combat experience. Nonsense. You are just causing trouble for everyone. More importantly, you're courting death. Kelly immediately berates her, hoping that Renee will give up on the idea of risking her life. It is indeed nonsense. I can't help but burst into laughter. We are a bunch of legend rank and gold rank pinnacle warriors. Was an iron rank rookie like you joining in? A stray bullet would be enough to kill you. Accumulating battle experience isn't something that can be done so easily. Someone has completely forgotten that he is only bronze rank. I'm already 14 years old. Legend has it that Prince Roland went to the battlefield at the age of 12. I have had enough of this fake knight princess title. I want this glorious title to live up to its name. If I can't even deal with such a small situation, how am I going to go on the battlefield in the future? Even when facing the berating of her family, the young lady bit her lower lip tightly. Although she didn't say a word, her face was filled with stubbornness. It is obvious that she isn't willing to give up just like that. I look over. Renee's legs are still trembling slightly. However, the Roland sacred sword by her waist is emitting a dazzling silver light, as though it is acknowledging her choice. The Roland sacred sword is the sword of the legendary Saint Knight, Prince Roland. Only his descendants and inheritors of the will are able to obtain the acknowledgement of this sacred sword. Inheritors of the will? At this moment, I inexplicably recall the conditions to use the Roland sacred sword. I recall that 300 years ago, it was because of my father's death in battle that Cavendish and I were allowed to go to the battlefield. Recalling that the past of the girl in front of me is shockingly similar to mine, I smile. Inheritors of the will? All right, keep up. Don't fall behind. Kelly, just like back then, some people are fated to be unable to be nurtured in a greenhouse. However, Bayphone, protect her well. If anything were to happen to her, your cloak will be gone. Ignoring the beast tamer who is overjoyed by my words, I also apologized to the worried Kelly in my heart and took the lead to lead the way. Damned leftovers. Let's settle the interest of the past first. Once again, the system jumps out and furiously rewards its existence. Special quest. The inheritance of the will of the legendary Saint Knight Roland has been triggered. During the completion of the epic tier quest, Revival of the Mist, 1/3 of the fate points that you obtain from killing enemies will be transferred to the wielder of the sacred sword, Renee. You can use the fate points to strengthen her. System notification. The completion of the special quest is directly related to the completion of your epic tier quest. As long as Renee dies in battle, or she loses the Roland sacred sword forever, both of the quests will fail. However, after becoming a girl, you can consider becoming a real princess. You will definitely be more powerful than Renee. I definitely won't fail. Before I die, Renee definitely won't die. All right, my unhesitatingly roar and declaration of protection rouses the morale of the night, but also causes a certain princess to blush. Chapter 92. Blade Transformation. Following my command, a certain black cat starts to change its form. The metal slime follows the template and transforms its body. A few seconds later, a jet-black two-handed sword appears in front of me. It is an unusually simple military-made weapon without any fancy carvings or decorations. It is so simple that it looks like a shoddy weapon that the city guards use. The blade is full of cuts, as though it could break at any moment. However, it exudes an indescribable killing intent, as though it is a veteran that has returned from 100 battles. Pale Justice, fake, two-handed sword. Requirement: Strength 12 plus. Attack power: 5 to 15. Rarity: excellent. Special effect: None man-made magic sword. This sword is the incarnation of the familiar Harlois. Although she doesn't feel any pain in this state and isn't afraid of being torn apart, it is best not to use it against a weapon that is 2 grades higher than you. Also, treat her a little better. Otherwise, if she suddenly disintegrates when you are hacking at her, elemental control, beginner increases all elemental magic damage by 25%. The blade deals 5 points of designated elemental damage. Current attribute: Ice. I have already found the Blade of Pale Justice. However, due to some reason, I am temporarily unable to retrieve it. This sword is a replica made by Harlois based on the original. The only special effect is the magic amplification effect from Harlois' soul. Rather than calling it a magic sword, it would be more appropriate to call a magic wand. Furthermore, it is a rare item that can amplify all magic spells and effects. To be honest, this replica is an insult to Harlois' identity as the Queen of Banshees. However, with the Pale Justice Soul Gem, it is completely different. Following the insertion of the Soul Gem, a pale holy light streaks across the entire blade. The pitch-black magic sword turns into a silver holy sword. Pale Justice, fake, attack power, 15 to 20. Grade: Epic, low tier, two-handed sword. Requirement: Strength 12 plus. Holy Knight, job man-made holy sword. This sword is the incarnation of the familiar Harlois. An epic tier holy sword. As long as it doesn't come into contact with the semi-god equipment, you can slash it however you like. However, due to accepting a soul gem that doesn't match its attributes, the blade is currently in a state of collapse. It will disintegrate in 29.99 seconds, 50 minutes. Elemental control. Middle tier increases all elemental magic damage by 35%. The blade deals 15 points of designated elemental damage. Current attribute: Ice, high holy flame. Inflicts 20 silver flame damage on chaos creatures. 5 silver flame damage on normal life forms. High tier courage. Immune to all fear-type spells and talents below the 9th circle. The user will always be in a state of high morale. Advanced protection against evil. Damage dealt by chaos creatures to the user will be reduced by 10. Holy flame, courage, and protection against evil. These were the attributes of a typical holy sword. It was also the effect of Holy Knight, Kane's holy soul. It might not be very effective against ordinary people, as the upper limit of the Roland Holy Sword's damage was just barely reaching the lower limit of the Roland Holy Sword. However, against chaos creatures such as demons and undead, it was at least comparable to a legendary tier god weapon. Of course, other than natural chaos creatures, just like the sinners judged by incantation of law. Judgment: the users of the power of chaos found by the Holy Knight detect evil, would also be viewed as a chaos creature by the Holy Sword. This includes elementalists who were wronged, demon warlocks who were slightly wronged, necromancers and evil mages who weren't wronged at all, witches and witches. Throughout history, the archmages and the churches of the gods have been in a state of conflict for a long period of time. The hunting of witches and witches has been going on for centuries. The Holy Knight, whose willpower is able to turn into magic resistance, naturally has high magic resistance. Furthermore, It has a special class advancement similar to the Mage Killer, so it is understandable that it doesn't have a good relationship with the mages. At this moment, I can't help but rejoice at the deep-seated hatred this sword has for chaos creatures. The moment we step into the hall of the Royal Astrology platform, the mages immediately focus their attacks on Diana and me, who are charging at the very front. Since we're going to challenge the Celestial Tower, which is dominated by mages, naturally, the Holy Knight will act as a meat shield. For the mages, when they encounter a Holy Knight who has high magic resistance but short legs, the first step in their battle strategy is to maintain their distance before summoning cannon fodder to block the opponent. After that, they will use their flashy spells to blast them to death. As for the more conventional long-range control and kiting tactics, due to the high magic resistance of the Holy Knight, it is easy for it to be killed by the Holy Knight. Thus, it isn't popular anymore. Even though I am extremely familiar with this strategy, I charge forward without any hesitation despite the countless cannon fodder obstructing me. The reason? Naturally, the cannon fodder that mages summon are creatures from another world. Undead from the plane of death, elemental creatures from the elemental plane, low-tier demons, and devils from the lower plane. Regardless of which one it is, they're all favored by chaos. Detect evil. Detect evil. Two Holy Knight use Detect Evil at the same time. Under the AoE Divine Art, the mages are enveloped by a red light that represents chaos. Even the undead, demons, and elemental creatures in front of us turn red. The 5 damage reduction from Titan Body and the 10 damage reduction from Advanced Protection from Evil, coupled with the outstanding physical defense from my heavy armor, makes me an outstanding tank when facing chaos creatures. Most of the time, the main task of the Holy Knight who has high magic resistance but low attack power is to act as a good meat shield in the party. Sundering Slash. After ignoring the attacks of the cannon fodder, the distance between me and the mages isn't too far. With a single strike, the mage who just summoned 2 skeleton archers is cut down without even making a sound. The first head of the mage falls into my hands. Seeing that their comrade had fallen, the other mages unhesitatingly threw their first wave of offensive spells at me. In an instant, fireballs and ice arrows flew everywhere. Acid arrows and scorching rays formed a chain, and a torrent of arcane missiles rained down on me like a long river. However, that slender figure blocks in front of me. No matter how colorful and dangerous the spells are, she silently blocks them all. Is she dead? When a mist of ice and smoke from the flames dissipates, the brown-skinned elf knight is shockingly unscathed. She has already rushed to the stairs leading to the second floor. Along the way, a bunch of mages are lying on the ground. Fortunately, the Dark Elf's Holy Knight is from Sulphur Mountain. Otherwise, it would be too much of a bully for mages. Before they fell, the Dark Elves were once the upper nobility of the Great Elf Kingdom. The Light Elves are at least of the Bronze bloodline. Their physical attributes aren't much stronger than those of humans who are close to white. In terms of strength and stamina, which is an important indicator of a warrior, they are even slightly inferior. However, no one dares to say that they aren't worthy of being called a bronze race. The reason is because of their racial talents. Magic-resistant skin, this racial talent that all Dark Elves possess. In reality, it is terrifyingly strong. Based on the rank of the wielder, it will reduce the effects of magic and damage dealt. The effect of this reduction is extremely strong, and it even greatly reduces the effects of the spells of Drool, witches, warlocks, and others, including Holy Light. The only thing that it can't reduce is the divine arts of priests that carry divine power. This is also the reason why the number 1 person in the Dark Elf Society is a Rose Priest. Under most circumstances, only males with low social status would choose to become a mage. Even the Barbarian of the Elves, the chief of martial arts, has a higher social status than an Archmage. A legend-ranked Holy Knight with ridiculously high magic resistance, plus magic resistant skin, plus magic resistance Holy Sword, Silver Avenger, which is most likely equipped with protection against evil. When the hall on the first floor is filled with low-rank acolytes who don't have any high circle spells, This is equivalent to using an egg to repel a train. I can already see the ending. Sundering evil slash. Simple and unadorned swordsmanship, one slash at a time, reaping the heads of the enemies with abnormal stability. I still have to be careful to avoid those magic spells, and Drool, who transforms into a bear or a werewolf. Diana has already charged back and forth a few times. Judging from her stunned expression, she is also surprised by the weakness of the enemy. At the start, when she saw so many mages, she was shocked. In the past, even when facing against those mages who are the bane of their existence, the endless trickery and tricks of their opponents caused all of the dark elves to suffer. To be able to kill one, or even two or three, with a single slash seems a little unreal. Cough, this is the surface. You can't expect every mage to be at the level of Lich Roland. In human society, a legend is at least a boss of a region. It is indeed embarrassing to use your full strength to bully a rookie. However, Diana, who grew up in the underground city, doesn't have the so-called dignity of the strong. Seeing so many mages, she was afraid that she would be instantly killed by the other party's powerful spell if she was too slow. Thus, she used her full strength and killed a dozen of them with a single slash. In the end, the large army that arrived a few seconds late could only clean up the mess. At this moment, those cannon fodder summoned creatures just happened to bump into the knight and gentleman. The knight was still fighting seriously when the gentleman started killing the entire field. Regardless of whether it is the two giant wolves controlled by Bayfoam or Cassio's Bone Bow, they're all Goldrank's explosive attacks. Under the sweep, Kolos wasn't even able to prepare her first AoE lightning strike before she was completely wiped out. Yet they were considerate enough to leave behind a skeleton soldier that could fall apart at any moment. Looking at Renee, who was forced into a fluster by the mediocre skeleton soldier, I shake my head helplessly. Don't even talk about advancing. She is still too far away from becoming a qualified warrior. Even with the help of the system, experience and techniques aren't something that can be achieved in a single day. Following the ringing of the alarm, I know that I don't have the time to waste on lamenting. It is the same for the second floor. Diana and I will be the vanguard. Hurry up. Looking at the blueprint we just received, the Celestial Tower only has 3 floors. The first floor is used to store books, materials, daily necessities, and the hall to display the exhibits. The second floor is the living quarters of the staff, and the third floor is used to store all kinds of large-scale stargazing equipment. The opponents we're looking for, the upper echelons of the Celestial Tower, are most likely on the second floor. This time, the moment we reached the second floor, we met with trouble. The 2 gigantic steel golems that serve as decorations come to life immediately. The ornamental armor and sculptures in the surroundings come to life as armored warriors. On the other hand, the spike traps and electric traps on the ground. After leaving the hall, where ordinary people can enter, considering the fact that they have a bad reputation, the Celestial Tower has turned this place into their fortress. Actually, one of the steel golems was blocked by Diana. However, this steel golem is invulnerable and possesses immense strength. It isn't something that I can face head-on with my current strength. There's no other choice. Let's use our trump card. Sword of Order. This kind of human talent is still too much for the current me. Following the expenditure of a large amount of stamina and holy light, I feel the world spinning around me. However, with a swipe of my finger, a golden lightning bolt splits the wall apart and smashes into the body of the steel golem. That is the crystallization of pure holy light. It materializes into the shape of a sword and slashes down. Its might is condensed to the point that nothing can stand in its way. Following the explosion of light, a second wave of damage is dealt to the steel golem. Even the steel golem that can easily crush gold-ranked melee fighters staggers before collapsing. Gotcha! A large hole is opened up on the back of the steel golem, and black smoke continuously comes out from it. On the other side, Diana looks at me in shock. Even as a legend rank, she wasn't able to deal with the steel golem. Yet, I, who hasn't even reached silver rank, managed to take the lead. However, I shake my head. The steel golem is the favorite guardian of the Mage Tower, and it is famous for its tenacity. This steel golem is obviously a high-tier one, so it won't be easy to deal with it. Even though it is heavily injured, judging from the gears that are still moving behind its steel skin and the spiritual light that is flashing, it is still far from being destroyed. However, how can I give it a chance to stand up again? I have already jumped onto its body. Picking up the other two-handed sword, I stab it into the body of the steel golem and start stirring it around. Where did the sword come from? It was summoned by the Sword of Order talent. Race talent, Sword of Order. Summons a weapon made of the power of order to deal damage to the target, and the weapon will exist for 1 minute depending on the level of the summoner. The quality of the weapon is determined by the rank of the caster. Weapon of Holy Light, Arbiter of Holy Light attack power, 10 to 15. Quality, excellent two-handed sword. Requirement, strength 12 plus. Holy Night job. Duration, 22 minutes. Holy Light crystal. Increases the effects of Holy Light by 50%. Increases the recovery of Holy Light by 100%. The blade of the sword will deal 10 points of Holy Flame damage. Middle level protection against evil. Reduces the damage dealt to the user by 6 points from Chaos life forms. This race talent that can only be used once a day can help me summon a Sword of Holy Light / Sword of Order. The quality of the Sword of Order isn't bad. At the very least, the amplification of Holy Light is tempting. However, it is a pity that it can only last for 20 minutes, which isn't enough. As a large amount of Holy Light is injected into the steel golem, the invasion of a foreign energy clashes with its original energy system. After a series of cracking sounds, the steel golem is destroyed. Judging from the 200 fate points reward that jumps out, the strength of this steel golem is obviously above mine. The lack of explosive power has always been the weakness of a Holy Knight. On the other side, even though Diana has already battered the steel golem to the point that smoke is coming out from its body, she is still in a stalemate. Following the arrival of Kolos, after a series of lightning strikes, the steel golem, which has weak resistance to lightning, finally collapses. However, the trap that was activated next is a new problem. I finally know what we are lacking in this trip. We are obviously lacking a great thief. Do we really have to use our physical bodies to withstand this darn chain of traps? In the end, using the summoned creatures to scout the path, we were still able to pass through the trap zone. However, the time that we were delayed was a little too long. By the time we finished cleaning the second floor and reached the third floor, the leader of the Celestial Tower, the Ottoman Empire, Lamosai, had already disappeared into the dimensional door. The opponents on the second and third floor are slightly harder to deal with. However, we are already in the depths of the wilderness. Those who have dual identities in the Celestial Tower are all in their other identities. The strongest ones left behind are just 2 gold rank mages. They pose no pressure to our party at all. When I clean up the battlefield and count the losses of the opponents, I realize that the harvest is better than what I expected. Yet another unlucky fellow who failed to open the dimensional door and got stuck in the wall. This dimensional door that even rookie mages only have a 1% failure rate in, and I actually saw more than 10 high-rank mages successively fall into it. Looks like the matter of the Celestial Tower being cursed by the god of fate is true. At the same time, I, who should have been furious over the escape of the opponents, fell into an indescribable joy because of a piece of intelligence that I just picked up. For the sake of our noble aspirations and to expand our influence in the Ottoman Empire, we have decided to assist the old emperor's 5th son, Dasos, to ascend to the throne. In order to prevent him from burning the bridge after crossing the river, we have left behind evidence of him killing his father and brother. That is, what is surprising is that Dasos actually didn't kill his father. I don't think that he would be soft-hearted, so there must be some secret behind it. As expected, after helping Dasos to attack the envoy of the Swolo Federation, we unexpectedly found out about the ultimate secret of the Ottoman Empire. Perhaps we can use this as a bargaining chip to extort more from him. Killing his father and brother. He really is an ambitious and ruthless person. This is the intelligence that I wanted. Dasos, perhaps we can have a good talk. Perhaps it is time for a good talk. The next morning, The news of the royal astrology platform being destroyed by fire spreads across the entire city. The spies of the royal family swiftly send the news to Dasos's desk. Hermit, who has woken up groggily from his sleep, immediately feels energized upon hearing such explosive news. Not intending to suppress them, from the moment the spies were discovered, they immediately tracked them down, and within 2 hours, they managed to find the astrology platform. Looking at the corpses found in the ruins, there are at least 4 legends. Not only is he vicious, his subordinates are also skilled. Since the other party has displayed sufficient strength, then at the very least, it is possible for us to have a talk. Furthermore, my men didn't manage to find the corpse of the mysterious Celestial Tower Guild leader. Perhaps he escaped. Then, this is a little troublesome. That fellow knows quite a lot of things. There is no need to be so foolish as to send himself to our doorstep for us to silence him. Let's just place him on the wanted list of the entire country and get rid of our relationship. Aren't you afraid that he would spill the beans? So what if he does? Will anyone believe him? Even if someone does, I'm the only son left of the late king. Do you expect me to abdicate the throne? Yeah, right. Has that old fellow confessed? Nope. That old fellow is as stubborn as ever. Why don't we give it a try again today? After a while, when the flower pot on the windowsill is moved away, the mechanism revealed is activated and a secret passageway to the underground room appears on the wall. Right? Why don't we organize a large-scale ball in your name and invite all of the foreign guests and descendants of the nobles? This way, it won't be too eye-catching. I think you are intending to make use of this opportunity to hunt for beauties. All right, let's set it for next week. When Dasos raises the lampstand and walks down the pitch-black stairs, he didn't expect a pitch-black rat to follow him. Looks like it was the right decision to come here to look for food. If I were to sell this secret to the generous Roland, how much could I sell it for?